Howdy, my name is Nachi Sasuke, and welcome back to Let's Read the SP Foundation Wiki. In the last episode, we started with Living with Werewolves, and we stopped at HMS Tiresias. This one we're going to be starting with Mimetic Emu, and aiming for Nematodes. Alright, so let's check out that there bird. I hope it's not the Liberty Mutual one. Alright, so it's Euclid. A recording capable of infecting human subjects with SCP-1261 is to be stored on Network Isolated Electronic Storage Station 2 at Site 108. In the event of failure, redundant analog backups of this recording are to be stored at archive site someplace. All experimentation on it is to be performed in black cloister-type soundproof testing chambers. Following experimentation, human subjects affected by 1261 are to be treated with a Class A amnestics prior to release from the testing chamber. Foundation personnel are not to interact with individuals affected by 1261 without DC-grade hearing impairment gear. Communication with affected subjects is to be limited to electronic transcription, typed or written methods, and sign language where applicable. Description: SCP-1261 is a highly virulent type October mimetic contagion propagated through oral vectors, and it says, formerly a dancing bear meme, see document MEM-C_28962 for additional information on the revised classification system. SCP-1261 deviates slightly from other memes of its class in that transmission is not limited to the expression of specific phrases or ideas. Instead, an individual is infected by the meme when he or she hears and understands an infected individual mentioning or referring to the hallucinations caused by it. Subjects affected by 1261 suffer from the persistent delusion that they are accompanied at all times by a sapient adult bird of infraclass Paleognathi, hereafter instances of one. Instances of one are almost exclusively members of the Dromaeus novaehollandii emu species, though several occurrences of Struthio camelus, common ostrich, and a single instance of Apteryx hastii, great spotted kiwi, have also been reported. Subjects typically express close familiarity with the perceived animal, with roughly 78% of subjects expressing the belief that one has accompanied them since the age of 13, with the remainder unable to provide specific details. Infected subjects younger than 13 years of age are able to perceive one instances of other affected individuals, but do not receive their own until their 13th birthday. Such occasions are treated by sufferers as a rite of passage similar to a quinceañera or Sweet 16 celebration. Descriptions of one behavior provided by affected subjects are uniformly consistent and indicate that the supposed birds understand and react in response to human speech, demonstrate affectionate gestures, e.g. nuzzling, towards their corresponding subject, and behave in a manner similar to trained assistance animals. Though all instances of one are visible to all individuals infected with 1261, the creatures rarely interact with one another or with other carriers. They are also described as maintaining consistent age and health throughout their subject's infection. Reports suggest no anomalous behavior from one beyond their apparent intelligence and constant presence. Class A amnestics effectively neutralized infection, with retained disposable due showing no signs of spontaneous relapse through 18 months of observation. Subjects treated in this way exhibit no lasting side effects save for an increased fondness of birds over other animals, especially as pets. Addendum 1. On August 14, 2001, Foundation operatives intercepted reports of a GOC raid on a settlement somewhere in Peru infested with Harvey greens. Details in GOC reconnaissance reports suggest that wide-scale 1261 exposure among the populace, which was corroborated by after-action reports from the GOC raid. MTF Beta 2 class houses were dispatched to investigate the remains of the settlement following the raid. Forensic analysis of the site suggests that 300 to 500 individuals had resided in the village, all of them infected with 1261. Irregularities in and around the settlements include feeding troughs exhibiting wear patterns consistent with large beaks, large nests in most dwellings, typically padded with blankets or other bedding and visibly worn, tracks and claw prints throughout the compound consistent with adult members of Dromaeus novaehollandii. I'm positive I said that wrong. And scratch marks on doors and other objects suggesting manipulations by adult members of that word. In spite of the observations described above, Beta 2 recovered no samples of biological or genetic material belonging to members of that on site. Additionally, intercepted after-action reports from the GOC raid mention no encounters with any wildlife save for the human residents of the settlement. Attempts to determine and/or reproduce the circumstances leading to the observed state of the site are ongoing. So it sounds like the birds are real. You just can only see them if you're infected with the SCP, which really doesn't seem to be hurting anybody. It's weird that it would be called Euclid, I guess because they can't contain the birds. But it doesn't seem like it's hurting any... What was this called? Seeds of Destruction. Yeah, I'm not surprised something called Seeds of Destruction is Keter. Alright, so, SCP-1262. Should I bring back the serious Keter voice? Is there enough moisture in my neck for that? Let's try. SCP-1262 is to be kept in an indefinite dormant state at Storage Area 33, inside a cube of dry ice measuring 3 by 3 by 3 meters at 205 Kelvin, also known as -60 degrees. -68 degrees Celsius. The cube is to be suspended inside Silo 4. 2 industrial-strength dehumidifiers will run continuously to sustain a dry environment within Silo 4. Neutron emitters will bathe the inside with radiation at all times to deter unwanted organics. Silo 4 is also to be filled with argon gas at standard atmospheric pressure. In the event of a catastrophic failure of the primary containment system or a breach in the cube itself, 6 pneumatic drills will extend from the walls and penetrate each face of the cube to deliver a powerful synthetic auxin 245T directly into SCP-1262. If this secondary system fails, 50% of Silo 4 will be filled with boiling paraquat, and 1262 will be released into the liquid. If this tertiary system fails, a series of controlled incendiary explosions using a combination of thermite, napalm, white phosphorus, and TNT will be used to suppress 1262. In any case, Mobile Task Force Theta 4, aka Gardeners, will respond and remain on site to provide additional security during the re-establishing reconstruction of the containment systems. At no time should water vapor, organic tissue, or visible light with a frequency of between 400 to 790 THz be introduced into Silo 4. Outside of containment, 1262 is extremely lethal in direct contact to organisms and should only be approached after being fully suppressed back to a dormant state. Description: SCP-1262 is a mass roughly 30 centimeters in diameter that is made up of a green plant matter, capable of a highly concentrated growth when left in the presence of light, moisture, or organic tissue. Its surface area is composed of a dense covering of thin roots. These roots can spread outwards by growth and movement at a rate of 0.22 meters per second. SCP-1262's roots can reach up to a kilometer in length in order to seek water and mineral nourishment from the surrounding environment or from other living organisms. SCP-1262 has a rapid regenerative ability which makes it difficult to eradicate. It also has an innate resistance to most types of radiation, extreme temperatures, and extreme pressures. However, extreme temperature, approximately greater than 1470 Kelvin or less than 213 Kelvin, or large amounts of aggressive herbicides seem to be the most effective suppression methods. Currently, there is no known method to fully exterminate 1262. If left unchecked, it will grow to form complex structures. These structures are supported by hardened cellulose fiber and lignin wax plating formed in hexagonal patterns. These structures also include defensive, offensive biological mechanisms that range anywhere from pneumatically discharged calcium carbonate flechates to hallucinogenic fume-releasing pods. Inside these structures, 1262 is able to produce many independently functioning organic systems for capturing and converting the ambient environment on an enormous scale. Please review Incident 1262 2010-4.2 summary for further information on 1262 activity and threat level. And it says, all information on SCP-1262 is based on observations in the field during the Iceland incident. It used to say, and the surviving witnesses' accounts, so there may not be any survivors. Timeline. On 4/12, a doctor, a prominent volcanologist, and his assistants were collecting samples on an ice cap in Iceland when they inadvertently unearthed 1262 from the dense ice. The doctor asked his assistant to retrieve it. As the assistant came into physical contact with it, he was quickly engulfed and absorbed by aggressive overgrowth resulting in death within seconds. The doctor escaped back to his vehicle and reported to the local authorities. Local law enforcement arrived hours later to find a thick tree-like structure growing. 3 of the officers were entangled and absorbed by roots underneath them, and another was killed by a toxic aerosol. The only surviving individual did not report the incident, but fled the country instead, where he was later detained overseas. SCP-1262 grew substantially and virtually unnoticed for the next 12 hours. On April the 13th, by 4 a.m., it had grown into a hardened cellulose-based structure covering almost 20,000 meters squared, with 3 prominent towers, each roughly 100 meters tall. At the base, a collection of gaseous bladders, each inflating and deflating independently, were scattered around the center mass. along with thick roots that penetrated deep into the ice. The structure was processing ambient air and other nutrients into heated carbon monoxide, which was being exhaled out of the structure's towers as thick clouds. 2 nearby towns evacuated after 50 people died from inhalation. By 12:30 p.m., 2 more towers had sprouted, and the entire structure had increased in size by 160%. The SCP Foundation was then notified, and a perimeter/media blackout was established to protect civilians. Mobile Task Force Sigma-9, aka Valkyries, was called in with Level 5 clearance to lay down suppressing fire around 1262 using air-to-ground bunker busters with blank warheads. On April the 14th, the first volley of the airstrike began at 1 a.m. and was successful in penetrating the ice cap over the dormant volcano. SCP-1262 became trapped in the collapsing caldera for a short while. During that time, 3 aircraft are destroyed by SCP-1262. A second volley was aimed directly at the center mass of the structure. These subsequent explosions were able to destabilize the volcano underneath to the point of triggering a violent eruption as planned. A final airstrike of bombing raids was made in the surrounding area of the ice cap, effectively demolishing the towns of blank blank and, along with blank of witnesses blank campsite. The entire site was closely monitored to ensure that it had been successfully incinerated in the eruption. All public knowledge of the incident was expunged, and the airspace of 20 nearby countries was subsequently closed off until further notice, until the atmospheric ash samples confirmed a complete neutralization. At an undetermined point in the future, Flight Blank crashed into an isolated area of Greenland while traveling from Iceland. Intercepted transmissions before the crash gave a strong indication that 1262 was involved. Upon further investigation of the wreckage, the tail section, which had broken off in midair, was found covered in 1262's overgrowth. Still in early stages of development, it was quickly suppressed and had the surrounding layers of growth stripped off. 1262 was then taken directly to Area 33 for indefinite storage. Okay, so it looks like the reason that one is keter is because as long as it's not fed, it's fine, but if it ever gets nutrients, it'll be extremely difficult to stop it. Because it was only there for like 1 day, and it was destroying that whole part of the world. So, talking heads. Are they going to be actual talking heads, or just like TV shows? Well, it's safe! SCP-1263-1 through 5 are to be contained in separate humanoid containment cells modified to accommodate pregnancies. New instances of A are to be analyzed and evaluated shortly after spawning and shall be either terminated or kept for further study at the discretion of Dr. Huang. Or it might be Hung. There are currently 23 specimens of A being held at Site-107 for testing. Specimens spawned from the same 1263 subject must not be brought within 1.4 meters of each other for any purpose other than approved testing. Okay. SCP-1263 consists of 5 Caucasian female siblings designated 1 through 5. 1 through 5 are in a comatose state and have been for some time prior to containment. Every 4 months, 5 instances of A will manifest within their womb simultaneously. The gestation period for A lasts 3 months, and within a 1 month pause with a 1 month pause before the cycle begins again. Instances of A appear to be disembodied human heads of variable race and gender. A instances lack connections for associated bodily systems, instead of possessing a layer of skin where said connections would normally be located. Despite this, A instances are alive and seem to carry out bodily functions as a normal human head would. The instances lack any kind of structure for transferring blood from and to the placenta of 1263. Tests have shown near constant brain activity in A specimens. DNA tests on A have been inconclusive. SCP-1263-A constantly emit rapid distress vocalizations. Let's see. Vocalizations from A instances are audible from the womb 1 week before spawning. They are largely unintelligible. When at least 5 instances of A spawn from the same member of 1263 are brought into a minimum proximity of 1.4 meters near each other, the vocalizations will begin to synchronize, and will eventually become fully coherent. A will not engage in this behavior with instances spawned from different members of 1263. The nature and language of the synchronized vocalizations vary depending on the A's corresponding member. AA, spawned by 1, recite audio being transmitted on the nearest 99.3 MHz frequency in real time in Portuguese. AB, spawned by 2, sing opera created during the Baroque period, altered to be performed in Urdu. AC, spawned in by 3, vocalized the thought streams of an unidentified individual in Laotian. Subject matters of the thoughts indicate that they are those of a resident of Wisconsin named Ron Ackerson. AD spawned by 4 tell what are believed to be meteorological forecasts from an unidentified extrasolar planet in Swahili, and AE, which says, notably, other A instances have displayed extreme anxiety when the presence of AE. Spawned by 5 acts as a two-way communication device for an intelligent entity designated Sigma and speak in English. Sigma has been largely uncooperative in the Foundation's attempts to extract information from it. And here's an audio log. Forward first recorded instance of communication with Sigma. At the time, the research staff was performing initial analysis and testing on AE to determine the nature of their vocalizations. 3 minutes after the chosen AE instances began to synchronize, Sigma attempted communication. Unintelligible voices in the background. This is Dr. Varghese performing experiment B, or 126339B, to determine the nature of AE's vocalizations. Researchers Janik and White are assisting. The test subjects have been grouped within appropriate proximity of each other. We are presently awaiting vocal synchronization. Over the next 3 minutes, the voices steadily synchronize and evolve into coherent speech. Hello. Is this thing on? There's silence for 5 seconds before Dr. Varghese responds. Yes? We can hear you? Excellent. The last few times I tried to get a signal, it didn't turn out so well. Please state your name. Jimmy. But that's not important right now. I'm finally able to share my writing. Would you like to hear some poetry? That won't be necessary. Now, how did you come to acquire this method of communication? Oh, come on now. I'm sure you'll love it. AE instances can be heard clearing their throats. Love. What is life without it? Why should we question about it? It is but the wind in the trees, the funny feeling in my knees, floating like a bumblebee. So free. Silence for 3 seconds. Now, wasn't that lovely? Here's another. Mother Nature, her sweet caress, it's all I need when life gives duress. Sounds so sweet. To researchers Janik and White, take the heads away. We'll try this another time. Yeesh, tough crowd. You'll come to like it if you take the time to think about it. Doesn't sound that bad. Jimmy the Poet. Granted, Jimmy the Poet's talking through a gathering of bodiless heads that came from comatose quintuplets, but, you know, the poetry was nice. Oh, another what is this called? Resurrected Wreckage. And it's another Keter one, with a lot of links in it. That one just leads to, that MTF, this one leads to that SCP. So, what have we here? I'm not going to do the voice again, that takes too long. SCP-1264 is located 75 meters below the ocean surface of the South Pacific at those coordinates. 48 degrees, 52.6 south. I don't know how to read the coordinates. Let's see, what does it say? Below 75 meters is considered to be 1264's crush depth based on engineering analysis. It is to be held in place by 8 pairs of 10 kiloton deadweight anchors, I assume that's kiloton, chained together and attached to 1264. Mobile Task Force Gamma 6, aka Deep Feeders, will be tasked with performing bi-monthly examinations done by remote submersibles in order to inspect the integrity of the anchors and chain. 550 naval contact mines will be positioned around, over, and under 1264. The mines will be placed 20 meters from each other in order to sympathetically detonate in the event of a contact. Shipping lanes and aquatic anomalies such as 2467 will be diverted in order to avoid the containment area. Since detainment, 1264 has exhibited no activity, but still remains buoyant. Description: SCP-1264 is an amalgamation of once derelict warships and various pieces of flotsam jetsam that have been adhered together by organic secretions. The main body of 1264 is made of 5 World War II era ships that were used as war target ships as part of the Operation Crossroads atomic bomb test performed at the Bikini Atoll in 1946. The following ships that make up 1264 were confirmed to have sunk after the test: the USS Saratoga, the Nagato, the Prinz Eugen, the USS Lamson, the USS Apagon, and various sections of a yard oiler. Survey reports of the wreckage performed at Bikini Atoll in 1954 showed a number of sunk ships missing from the lagoon. In response, the U.S. Navy built and sunk several dummy ships in their place in order to cover up any evidence of the missing original ships. The U.S. government then initiated Operation Castle under the guise of nuclear testing, but was actually intended for the purpose of creating sufficient nuclear fallout as to make the Bikini Atoll area uninhabitable. 1264 was first documented in January 30th, 1959, 56 kilometers south of Cape Farewell, Greenland, where it engaged and sunk the MS Hans Hedtoft during its maiden voyage. 1264 shows only moderate corrosion and damage in contradiction of US Navy records on the individual ships. The centerpiece of it is the aircraft carrier with several large jib cranes attached to its deck. The other ships are fastened to the sides of the centerpiece by means of hardened secretions. All of the ships are missing their superstructure or conning towers. Other flotsam and jetsam has been attached to fill in empty spaces between the ships and roughly makes up 12% of the SCP-64's total mass. It is armed with various pieces of artillery, torpedoes, AA guns, and depth charges. However, only several pieces of artillery have ever been seen in use, which indicates that either the remaining are not operational, or there are insufficient resources to operate them. 1264 spends most of its time underwater as a submersible. Above the water, it is capable of speeds up to 31 knots. SCP-1264 is maintained by a crew that has been designated A. Each fit inside a US Navy standard rubber diving dress and are equipped with a Mark V diving helmet and weighted boots. They are headless humanoid entities closely related to sea cucumbers, see autopsy report. A are also connected by a flexible arterial cord roughly 90 meters long that is in turn connected to 1264's interior. A displays a deep understanding of 1264's mechanical and electrical systems. They habitually perform repairs and maintenance with what is available within their designated areas. They are characteristically slow, obstinate, and exhibit no real intelligence of their own. A also secrete a strong adhesive through their gloves that act as a waterproof sealant, binder, filler, and cement in order to maintain the structural integrity and buoyancy of 1264. All of 1264's steerage and weapon systems are operated by A. In turn, A is commanded by a single entity designated 1. 1's appearance is unknown, and the only physical evidence for 1's existence are the arterial cords that connect A to the ship's interior. These cords are lined with strands of neural tissue that do not originate from A. This indicates that A is directly connected to a separate biological entity, or that 1 is actually the collective consciousness of A. 1 has proven on numerous occasions to be a hostile and skillful tactician of naval warfare. 1 has been reported in some cases to transmit radio signals via ELF radio. To date, SCP-1264-1 has engaged blank civilian and military vessels and has sunk blank of them, though 1 has shown a preference for passenger ships over other vessels. After the destruction of a vessel, A will then throw fishing nets on top of survivors floating in the water. These nets are then attached to the hull of the sinking vessel or an anchor so that it will drag down the net and its contents. Post-incident recovery teams using submersibles are unable to locate any corpses underwater after they are dragged to the bottom. In 2000-something, 1264 was involved in a protracted engagement with MTF Tau 11, aka can openers, and was effectively suppressed. In its impaired condition, 1264 was then towed out under armed escort to its current containment area for indefinite detainment. Okay, what's the first thing we need access for? Autopsy report. Partially recovered lower extremity of A1. Descendant? Or descendant, yeah. Age, no. Race, no. Sex, no. Length, 177 centimeters. Weight, 111.3 kilograms. The location of the autopsy was Site 45, authorized by Dr. W. Herms, recovered post-incident 12D, Mark IV diving helmet, standard US Navy diving dress, and a weighted boot. Multiple blast and fragment injuries to the chest and abdomen, including amputation of one of the lower extremities. There are multiple penetrating fragment injuries of the anterior thorax. Bilateral symmetry is present in the physical appearance. 4 extremities branch out from the central body, 2 upper and 2 lower. The upper extremities branch out again into the 4 smaller distal appendages. This allows the subject to operate inside the suit by taking on a nearly humanoid form. Was injured by explosive munitions. Gross description. Skin, a membranous epidermis and dermis are both present. A thin layer of calcified structures below the neck. Below the dermis, and is made of isolated microscopic ossicles joined by connective tissue. Head and neck. Head is totally absent. The helmet is filled only with seawater and detritus. The open neck actually serves as an anus, expelling waste into the helmet. Skeletal system. Endoskeleton made of reinforced calcareous rods, plates, and bulbs provide upright support to the body and extremities. These structures are not true bones as they lack marrow nerves, endosternum, and periosternum. Structures are held tightly in place by the surrounding radial muscles. Muscle tissue. The tissue is dark brown in color and formed in a circular pattern around the endoskeleton. A water vascular system is present to allow elongation and introversion of the muscle tissue. The water is not actually used in the hydraulics, but rather Echo, Echolimics fluid. Circulatory system. Hundreds of miniature ampullae are present within the muscle tissue that pump the coelomic fluid. Phagocytic, coelomocytes, somewhat similar in function to the white blood cells of vertebrates, are formed within the vessels and travel throughout the body cavity via the fluid. They also seem to be responsible for carrying the hemoglobin. Respiratory and digestive system. Oxygenated and deoxygenated fluid is circulated by the arterial cord protruding from the dorsal side. The cord is the body's lifeline for oxygen and nutrition, similar to a fetus connected to a mother's placenta. Body cavity lacks gills and stomach. The cord directly branches off into the intestines and major vessels once inside the body. Nervous system. Brain is completely absent. Nerve tissue stems from the thin notochord-like structure that is included in the arterial cord. Small eye spots are present on the distal upper appendages. Other comments. A system of interconnected glands fills the entire ventral thoracic cavity. These glands are responsible for secreting the specialized adhesive. Secretions are then pumped through the upper extremities and out the distal orifices. Other lab procedures: toxicology, photography, x-ray, microscopic examination, disposition of evidence, toxicologist, vitreous fluids, lead investigator, clothing, equipment, morgue custodian, body. Note: items not specifically stored in Lab 62 Vault are to be incinerated. Summary: body exhibits strong physical and anatomical traits with echinoderms, especially holothuroidea or sea cucumbers. Though the body includes many independent systems, it is completely dependent on this cord for sustenance and nutrition and direction. Control of the body is granted through the cord through some other intelligence, as it is evident how the neural pathway ends inside the body cavity but originates elsewhere. This body should be considered a physical extension of this intelligence. This entity must be made of the same anatomical characteristics as A1 in order to utilize and manipulate these extensions. This entity, if it is in fact a singular consciousness, would have to be extremely adapted to handling an enormous amount of input and output signals simultaneously in order to manage all of A. And level 2 access again. Admin comment: content moved to secure server. Verifying clearance, verified. Initiating automatic protocol override, generating temporary password. Your temporary password is Azure Cesium Salmon 21. Password valid for 20 minutes. Access secure server. Okay. File not found. Okay. MTF after action report 1264 D2. Verifying client blah blah blah. Connection failed, error 556. Blah blah. Attempt 23. After action report. March 11th, 1999. Location 15 kilometers north of the coast of the Hawaiian island of Kauai? I'm not Hawaiian. I'm sorry. If anyone's watching who's Hawaiian, I'm sorry that I butchered that. Engagement is authorized after a cruise ship is attacked by 1264. Can openers is dispatched to the area with 5 Pegasus-class hydrofoils, PHM 7 through 11, and 1 Juliet-class submarine, CMS-3, from Marine Command 9. CMS-3 was standby and awaiting clearance from the PHM Rapid Response Unit in order to launch its P-500 missiles without jeopardizing civilians. Upon arrival of the PHM, the cruise ship was on fire and taking on water while listing steeply to port. A was seen from a large opening on the starboard side, throwing fish nets over the survivors in the water. At 1301, PHM made contact with 1264 while A attempted to ensnare the survivors. 7 and 9 then broke formation to engage A directly using their 76mm guns. A was quickly suppressed as 7 and 9 fired along the hull. 2 minutes later, H-10 and 11 fired their harpoon missiles directly into the stern of 1264 from a distance of 750 meters away. It was hit and took damage to 2 of its rudders. The port side turrets all turned 90 degrees to their 9 o'clock position just before 1264 rapidly dove into the water. Afterwards, underwater explosions and floating debris were seen trailing off to the west. 7 and 9 investigate. During this time, CMS-3 made positive radio communication with 1 Addendum. Behind the remaining 3 PHMs, 1264 partially resurfaced, just enough to expose its portside turrets. 1264 was positioned with the PHM starboard hull directly in its line of fire. 6 of the port's batteries' 140mm guns fired into the 3 PHMs, effectively destroying them. 7 was then relayed to 3 that 1264 was clear of the civilians. 3 then launched 2 P-500 missiles targeted at 1264. 1264 then began to move towards the capsizing cruise ship and fired 2 of its 4 10mm guns at the exposed bilge keel at a distance of only 175 meters. The ship exploded and splintered into several sections. 1264 then plowed through the floating debris. The P-500 missile's active radar was unable to distinguish 1264 from the wreckage, and they missed the target. 1264 launched Mark 14 torpedoes at 7 and 9. It collected the remaining nets of ensnared passengers and dove underwater a second time. Both PHMs easily outmaneuvered the torpedoes. 3 was then ordered by Marine Command 9 to track 1264 with sonar and pursue. The remaining PHMs attempted to retrieve any survivors left in the water that were able to avoid the nets. Only 19 out of the 215 bodies were recovered from the scene. CMS-3 lost contact with 1264 55 kilometers northeast of the incident. Addendum. During this incident between 1306 and 1310, CMS-3 made positive radio communication with 1 over ELF radio signals. Below is the audio transcript between the operator and 1 after its initial dive. Deep gurgling noises. Unknown contact. You are ordered to resurface or be destroyed. Do you copy? Continue gurgling. Unknown contact. Resurface or be destroyed. Do you copy? Gurgling pauses. A deep voice is then heard. The interlopers want my compliance. Granted. Unknown contact. You have 2 minutes to resurface. This is an ultimatum. Do you copy? Yes. Unknown contact. Respond. Loud banging is heard in the background. Preparing to resurface. At this time, 1264 resurfaced and destroyed 3 of the PHMs. Drone with me. Post-encounter summary. The survivors were debriefed and given Class B amnestics before being handed over to the U.S. Navy. A cover story was distributed through the media that the cruise ship sunk after suffering a catastrophic engine fire, which killed almost all the passengers. A false investigation of the accident was also initiated in order to suppress growing public suspicion. On June 8, 1999, 1264 was reported and photographed by a fishing trawler in the Indian Ocean. Photos were intercepted and revealed that all damage done during Incident D2 had been repaired. Additional spending was later approved for Tau 11 for expanding its fleet to include aerial support, acquisition of heavier armament, and installation of passive sonar buoys at strategic locations. End of file. Alright, the Mesozoic Preserve. An instance of 1265A image recovered from a camera within 1265, photographed by Agent Elaine Benetow, who goes to a whole other website called PaleoSpot. Their Euclid, Site 1265, which contains 1265, is to be publicly maintained as a wildlife preserve by the Safe and Clean Planet Initiative, SCP, because of course, a Foundation front company. Honestly, do y'all even try? I don't think you do. Scientific discoveries made by the Foundation regarding wildlife within 1265 may be published following corresponding evidence being found in the fossil record. Civilians wishing to travel through 1265 are to be treated with Class D interrograde selective amnestics in order to be unable to remember instances of A that they come into contact with. All untreated civilians found to have come into contact with A instances are to be treated with Class A retrograde general amnestics, implanted with false memories, and released. Every 6 months, eggs laid by instances of A are to be harvested for incubation and study before being released into the wild at maturity. Full procedures for care of young specimens of A, including imprinting procedures, see Document 1. Description: SCP-1265 is an irregularly shaped area of land measuring 50 kilometers squared within the Congo Basin, Africa. 1265 is mostly contained within the Democratic Republic of the Congo, but approximately 50 kilometers squared is contained within the neighboring Republic of the Congo. The majority of 1265 is uninhabited, save for some tribal villages, and contains flora typical of the Congo Basin. SCP-1265 was inhabited by several species known to be extinct, mostly from the Clade Dinosauria. Clade, I guess. Clade, dinosaurs. These animals, collectively designated A, appear spontaneously in groups of 5 approximately once every 30 days, and are not necessarily found on the fossil record within Africa. Instead, they appear to be selected based on the climate they lived in during the Mesozoic era. Instances of A are incapable of leaving 1265 as they dematerialize upon crossing the border of 1265, and reappear in an area within 3 kilometers of the border sedated. A are also not chosen based on one particular period of the Mesozoic, but the Cretaceous and Jurassic are the most well represented, with sparse population of Triassic period dinosaurs. In addition, several non-dinosaur reptilians, such as pterosaurs, are known to exist within 1265, but are not commonly seen. SCP-1265-A instances, even carnivores, show no aggression or fear towards humans unless provoked. To date, the 3 Foundation personnel killed in 1265 have died as a result of accidentally provoking an A instance as opposed to being actively hunted by a carnivorous species of A. Notably, there are few large carnivores or herbivores, either one, herbivorous dinosaurs present in the A instances, and a lack of dinosaur species whose fossils have been found in North America. For example, species such as Tyrannosaurus rex or Brachiosaurus have never been cited in 1265, but species such as Spinosaurus and Kentrosaurus are relatively common. Proportionately speaking, there's a 5-to-1 ratio of non-American dinosaurs to American species. Finally, there are several instances of A that have not yet been discovered in the fossil record, collectively known as Alpha. Alpha instances are known for being unusually aggressive and will often charge at or attempt to attack researchers and other animals within 1265 indiscriminately. As of yet, Foundation researchers have been unable to determine the origin of most instances of Alpha. It used to say any, but now it says most. Some have been found in the fossil record and as such have been reclassified as instances of A. Notably, Alpha instances reclassified as A usually lose all aggressive tendencies. 1265 is believed to have existed for at least 200 years according to historical records. Several instances of A have been integrated into the folklore of several tribes in the area near 1265. Objects such as SCP-346 suggest anomalies similar to 1265 may exist elsewhere, though no additional instances have been found. For further details, see Interview 1. An interview conducted by Dr. Wells in Mbashi Village, 5.5 kilometers away from the perimeter of 1265, regarding A sightings. All dialogue is translated from the Lingala language. Well, what can you tell me about the monsters? There are several of them in the jungle, almost all of them in the water. They do not eat people, though. Not most of them, except for Nguma Monene, roughly large python. Nguma is like a big snake with legs, walks on all fours like a dog, and has big ridge on its back. That will eat you if it catches you. This is believed to be an exaggeration. To date, no record of instances of A consuming humans has been found. Tell me about Mokele Mbembe, one who blocks rivers. Is the largest of them all. It is big enough to block rivers and makes the lakes rise. It can breathe underwater, but is not a fish, and the earth shakes when it walks. There's also Mbelu, the beast with planks in its back. Dr. Wells produces illustrations of Carnosaurus and Kentrosaurus from his pack. Are these Mokele and Mbelu? Yes and no. No? These do not have feathers. Everything else is right, but Mbelu has feathers, so does Mokele. They're almost like birds in that way, but they do not fly. The ones that do fly have no feathers. What else can you tell me about the area? It is hexed. The Mokeles and the Mbielus and others cannot leave it without vanishing, nor can their eggs or meat. Years ago, hunters tried to bring back the carcass of a Mokele. It took the whole village, and when they reached the edge of the area, it simply vanished. How many people have gone into the area over the past several years? Many. They are hunters, but they do not want to kill. They wanted to find Mokele and nothing else. They never succeed for whatever reason. It is because they do not look in that one area for Mokele. We tell them that it is dangerous, and it is. All people know that area is dangerous and not to go near it. That will be all. Thank you for your cooperation. Note, administration of MS6 was deemed unnecessary due to the familiarity the majority of the village had with 1265. Collected notes regarding A. Notes taken during a monthly expedition through 1265 by Dr. Neal. Looks like there's a story that leads to SCP-563 in there. Or just a link. I still find it fascinating that almost all instances of A, well, the dinosaurs at least, are feathered, not scaled. All I have to say is this: Chen, eat your heart out. This blows Yixian way out of the water. Let's see. Peiji Chen was one of the 3 paleontologists who described a fossil of Sinosauropteryx prima in a 1998 issue of Nature. The Yixian Formation in Liaoning, China, started producing fossil evidence of feathered dinosaurs in the 1990s, with Sinosauropteryx being one of the first to bear feather imprinting. Wings come across a few carcasses, and he's joked a few times about wanting to see what they taste like. I don't trust dinosaur meat, especially given what we found at that farm in China. There's some trilobites in the water, however, and the natives sometimes come here to fish for them. It tastes like prawns. As noted in the main description, the majority of them are from the clade Dinosauria and are all suited to fit the climate of the Congo. Several of them are quasi-amphibious, such as the Kentrosaurus, which prefers to spend time in the water. Observation has shown that it can hold its breath for up to an hour at a time. As such, Kentrosaurus native to this area have large amounts of algae growing on their plates and spikes, occasionally giving the illusion that they are a living bush of some sort. Kentrosaurus are usually quite docile, but we've seen that thagomizers can take down small trees. Or the clinical term for the spikes at the end of a stegosaurid's tail. Despite the theory created by Mr. Russell in the 1980s, there's absolutely no evidence that Troodon would ever have evolved into the so-called dinosauroid. In 1982, Dale Russell hypothesized that if they had not gone extinct, Troodon would have evolved into a more humanoid form known as a dinosauroid. There is no evidence to support this claim. But they are rather intelligent. They have been seen using rudimentary tools in a manner similar to chimpanzees in order to pick fruit from trees and throw rocks at prey in order to hurt it, or injure it. We found a family of baryonyx today. As it turns out, they are semi-aquatic and use their tails to shoot through the water after fish and chomp them up like a crocodile or gharials. They appear to be associating with a clan of Spinosaurs. Dr. Moore was very disappointed about seeing a live Spinosaurus, and I honestly can't blame him. They're mostly quadrupedal and have feather covering more like ducks than anything else. Their skeletal structure is completely unsuited for walking upright, and the less said about the so-called spine, the better. Scientifically fascinating, but as a lifelong dinosaur enthusiast, I must grieve for such a titan. We've made an incredible discovery, a 4-winged flying dinosaur, with wings on both its arms and its legs. Wing speculates that it's a completely new species of Microraptor, native to Asia. Its color like a raven, its plumage is an iridescent black. Since it's not found in the record, it's an alpha instance, and those things are tetchy. Wang nearly got his finger bitten off sedating it. If it's ever found in the fossil record, we'll name it properly, but for now it's just Microraptor foundationii. Fossils of the species were discovered in 2012, and the animal has since been publicly classified as M. Hangshingi by Gong et al. We finally found something that isn't feathered. It's a species of crocodile, Postosuchus, late Triassic. It was drinking at the edge of a lake when suddenly a pack of Colophysis jumped out and attacked it. Several of them went for its throat, cutting the jugular. As soon as it bled out, they began stripping the corpse to the bone. It was astounding, almost like a piranha tearing a cow apart in the Amazon. A piranha doing what? Where? We managed to collect the skeleton, and Wing noticed that the thing had 3 shattered ankles, as if it had fallen and landed on their feet. Probably why the Colophysis were able to take it down so easily. We saw a magnificent fight between a Therizinosaurus and a Carnotaurus. The Therizinosaurus practically decapitated the poor carnivore, which was about the same size. Then it did something rather odd. It cut open the corpse and dipped its claws in the blood before scoring the trees around it with dinosaur blood. I believe this was done for the purpose of marking territory. It's actually rather fascinating if somewhat gruesome. The Therizinosaur then ate a bit of flesh from the Carnotaur and left the area. Dr. Moore has apparently never seen a Dilophosaurus outside of a certain movie. He was absolutely shocked when he saw one, and it wasn't a 2-meter long creature that acted like a dog, but rather a 6-meter long creature that looked like it could bite its head off. It ran away, but we managed to get some good pictures. Also found some footprints from an unknown sauropod. I honestly have no idea what on earth we saw today. We found a new instance of Alpha. It appeared to be a ceratopsid with a single horn and 4 short stumpy legs, but it had a long tail dragging along the ground, uncharacteristic of ceratopsids, and it didn't have a frill of any sort. Instead, it almost seemed to have floppy ears near the top of its head. It was also quite aggressive and was engaged in combat with a Pachyrhinosaurus for unknown reasons. It ended up goring the poor thing. We decided to head back to the site after that. Okay, so honestly, that was a little bit more festive than I was expecting it to be, and I do find it funny that well, I was going to say that I found it funny that it was called something, but it's not called what I thought it said. I think I'm probably just tired. Luckily, I record these things in pieces, so this is the part where I'm going to be taking the gap before I go to 1266, which is called Permian Arc. Alright, so, the Permian Arc. SCP-1266, it's Euclid. Special containment procedures. As it is immobile, it is contained on-site under a sealed terrarium dome 100 meters in diameter in order to isolate it from the Earth's atmosphere. All structural components of the primary dome must be checked weekly for deterioration or corrosion, and damaged sections must be sealed and repaired immediately. All personnel entering the containment dome must wear full-body, self-contained hazardous material suits and must undergo complete decontamination when entering or leaving the sealed containment area. All equipment used must also be decontaminated. Specimens of all flora and fauna collected from 1266's vicinity are to be kept in the site's main laboratory. Description: SCP-1266 is an engraved metallic ovoid object approximately 12 meters in length and 7 meters in width, located at a former paleontology dig site at Redacted PR, China. Attempts to date the artifact have met with only limited success, as all attempts to sample its surface material have failed thus far. However, through dating the surrounding strata and analysis of its primary effect, it is suggested that 1266 is at least 252 million years old, placing its presence on Earth to just prior the Permian-Triassic extinction event. SCP-1266 was unearthed by paleontologists on Redacted. Shortly after being unearthed, it activated and levitated into the air, orientating itself vertically where it has remained ever since. It has completely resisted any attempt to move it, but has exhibited the following traits to date. It continuously processes surrounding air, altering its chemical and organic balance to what is believed to be Earth norm near the end of the Permian geological period. It produces and releases seeds for many extinct terrestrial plant genera, most notably chordates and glossopteris. It produces and releases live specimens of terrestrial invertebrates such as extinct these. It produces and releases live specimens of terrestrial vertebrate animals such as extinct labyrinthodont amphibians, sauropsids, and theropsids, most notably large numbers of Lystrosaurus herbivores. It is currently unknown whether it is somehow fabricating these specimens from stored genetic data or releasing them from some form of stasis and internal storage. At the time of this writing, 1266 Containment Dome has stabilized itself into a self-contained, self-sustaining ecology populated by Permian wildlife. To date, attempts to open, disable, or take samples from 1266 have failed, as no means available to the Foundation appear to be capable of manipulating or damaging the object. Ultrasonic, spectroscopic, and redacted analysis suggests that 1266 may have an inconsistent internal topography, and gravimetric instrument measurements taken from the vicinity seem to indicate that the object may exceed blank 100,000 something tons in weight. Excavation of the surrounding site has uncovered no additional artifacts at the same level as 1266, and attempts to decipher the inscriptions are ongoing. At this time, it is still not known how it was created or what it used to what caused it to activate. Addendum 1 Observer Note. The request to use military-grade weapons in an attempt to breach 1266's surface has been denied, as it prevents too much risk to the object and the scientific value it holds. Until a better understanding of its function and or a way to safely deactivate it is found, all such requests will continue to be denied. I mean, if it's not hurting anybody, and as long as the creatures are trapped in the dome so that they don't disrupt life as we know it, I guess. Next up is Metamorphic Mammal. It's Euclid as well. SCP-1267 is currently maintained in the large animal wing of Site-12, in a 10 meter by 15 meter enclosure recessed 3 meters below an encircling observation walkway. Separating the observation area from the enclosure is a 2 meter fence of reinforced steel and synthetic netting, which also encloses the roof. At least 2 level 2 veterinary doctors familiar with the mammalian biology and animal husbandry are assigned to 1267, one of whom must be on site at all times. 1267 is to undergo bi-weekly examination by sonogram and x-ray. When necessary, the supervising doctor is to be the primary designator of any new containment procedures required. Access to 1267 requires clearance from the supervising doctor. Personnel assigned to 1267 are reminded that each instance of 1267 is effectively a new untamed organism. Alright then. SCP-1267 is a mammalian organism which, as of June the 9th, 2000-something, resembles an adult female pronghorn antelope. Thus far, attempts at interbreeding or crossbreeding with common stock have failed to produce viable offspring. All observed instances of 1267 to date have been female. 1267 is effectively indistinguishable from its template species. It will periodically undergo an event which resembles the incomplete metamorphosis that occurs in some orders of arthropod. This process appears to occur only after the organism has reached an age at which its template species will achieve sexual maturity. Metamorphosis has also been induced in 2 cases, the experiment 1267B for summary. During metamorphosis, 1267 displays behavior consistent with a gravid female of its template species. Gravid? However, ultrasound reveals that up to 90% of the tissue in its thoracic and abdominal cavities undergoes a radical alteration into what is effectively a second fetal organism designated 1, resembling a different template mammalian species. On blank occasions, this alteration has included the effective destruction of vital respiratory, circulatory, and/or digestive systems without any apparent negative effect on 1267. The form taken, thus far, appears to be constrained to template species whose size at birth is no greater than the dimensions of 1267 itself. It enters the final phase of metamorphosis when 1 either reaches full adult growth type 1, or completely fills the thoracic and abdominal cavities of 1267 type 2. At this point, it will become visibly distressed and show signs of disorientation. Within 3 hours of onset, 1, hereby designated 1267, will violently emerge from the previous organism's body, which it will then consume, regardless of template species' normal dietary habits. An instance of 1267 produced by type 1 metamorphosis is completely autonomous upon emergence. An instance produced by type 2 may be in a juvenile or even infantile developmental stage and may require additional care accordingly. See Table A for full documentation of observed metamorphic events by 1267. Addendum A. Updated containment procedures. Given the nature of Metamorphic Event 14, 1267 is to be contained at a coastal Foundation facility that meets Protocol 173 standards for oceanic creature containment. Okay, Experiment A. Objective: determined reproductive capability. Procedure: a male California ground squirrel is introduced to the enclosure containing 1267, currently resembling a female California ground squirrel, and the two are allowed to copulate multiple times over a 1-month period. 1267 fails to become pregnant. It is hypothesized that it cannot reproduce by conventional means. Experiment B. In light of the events immediately following 1267's retrieval, investigate alternate triggering stimuli for metamorphosis. Procedure A. A digit is surgically removed from each of its hind limbs, while it's currently a gray-headed flying fox. Does not enter metamorphic stage. Procedure B. A digital is surgically removed from each forelimb, rendering it flightless. Result: onset of metamorphosis is observed via ultrasound approximately 36 hours after 1267 awakens following Procedure B. It is hypothesized that 1267 will enter the metamorphic state in response to crippling trauma. Okay, Experiment C. Investigate the potential for reproduction of 1267 by non-traditional methods. Procedure: nuclei from memory cells harvested from 1267, currently resembling a gray wolf, are transferred to enucleated egg cells from a donor gray wolf, and the resulting eggs are implanted into 3 gestational surrogates, 3 in 1, 5 in the second, and 4 in the third. Result: all 3 gestational surrogates miscarried. None of the eggs implanted in surrogates 2 or 3 progressed past the blastocyst stage. The fetuses carried by surrogate 1 showed felid, so I guess that's cat, hippo, and blank characteristics respectively. Additional research into cloning is recommended. Psychiatric evaluation personnel 126753. Confidential level 4 clearance required. Okay. Interview. Interviewed Dr. A. Interviewer Dr. L. Forward. Dr. A was transferred for psychiatric evaluation following Event 23. Okay. Okay. Good afternoon, Doctor. Please, have a seat. I understand you've been having difficulty sleeping. Would you like to talk about what's bothering you? I think I just need to get it off my chest. Ever since the last metamorphic event with 1267. What about it? None of us, well, I think we all knew it could happen eventually. Probably just didn't want to consider having to actually deal with it. You're speaking of... I see. The latest instance of SCP-1267. Have you seen the drawing she's making? She remembers, man! Every single metamorphosis, probably hundreds of them. She's like 12 years old, and the latest ultrasound... Oh god. It'll rip her in half. Dr. A, this is neither the first nor the last time the Foundation will be required to keep a humanoid SCP in containment. If you're unwilling or unable to continue your duties with SCP-1267, I can recommend that you be reassigned. If you wish, I can also put in a request to the site administrator for Class D amnestic. Okay, so it sounds like that particular doctor needed psychiatric evaluation because they weren't prepared for it to turn into a human. I don't know why they weren't prepared for that, but looks like it happened. Now it's time for mass hysteria. I don't know if this would be cats or dogs living together, but mass hysteria. What? What? Safe exequi. Okay, sure. Why not? Special containment procedures. SCP-1268 is to be kept in a standard humanoid containment cell and fed regularly. The room is to be monitored by one guard at all times. Fitbit, shut up, I'm working. In the event of a containment breach, security personnel are required to detain SCP-1268 alive if at all possible. However, if personnel deem 1268 an imminent risk, they are permitted to dispose of it by any means necessary. Does it not come back? Or has they not just had to do that yet? SCP-1268 is a human male of indeterminate race with brown eyes and black hair. While they are capable of basic motor functions and self-maintenance, it does not appear to be capable of communication, nor does it show signs of, it used to say emotion, but now it says higher intelligence. It is currently believed to be non-sapient, however, it has demonstrated the ability to use stairs, doors, handles, and elevators. When left to its own devices, 1268 will wander aimlessly until it is in proximity of a large group of people. Due to the inherent expense of testing the capabilities, the exact group size and conditions necessary to trigger 1268's anomalous effects is unknown. The phenomenon has been observed to occur in groups as small as 35. In these situations, SCP-1268 will go into the crowd and slowly move through it. During this process, the behavior of those in the group will be altered in a predictable manner. 0 to 2 minutes, no effects are visible. 2 to 7 minutes, persons in the crowd are visibly nervous, turning their heads frequently and moving more quickly than before 1268 entered the crowd. 7 to 14 minutes, people other than 1268 will begin to experience disorientation and confusion. Some will actively attempt to exit the crowd, although most will continue with whatever activities they were participating in. 14 minutes onward, almost all persons in the crowd panic and attempt to leave the area by any means necessary. Such as affected this way show a distinct lack of concern for the safety of themselves and others. Anomalous effects will cease after 1268 is no longer in the crowd. The danger of it varies with group size, group density, and accessibility of exits and size of exits. On average, 30% of all persons in a group that has been affected will be killed from being trampled or from interpersonal violence. A further 35% will suffer injuries of various severity. 1268 will remain unharmed, and it used to say, show no apparent reaction in the crowd. Addendum. A review of available footage has found that when in a crowd of 14 minutes or more, SCP-1268 will exhibit a behavior that may or may not be laughter. Why is... Oh, it's a story. Okay. Most days, I wish I hadn't been given the ability to do anything for myself. It's nice that I can feed myself and use the toilet on my own, for what I hope are obvious reasons. The act of operating an elevator properly is the high point of my day. The moment where I can choose the floor I want is like having a weight lifted off of my chest, and so on and so forth. The thing about agency is that even the smallest drop opens the door for guilt. There are an assortment of very good reasons why I'm not responsible for what I do, but whenever I do anything more than put one foot in front of the other, I can't shake away the thought you could have stopped yourself. Guilt is the one emotion I've always felt strongly, and it's doing me no favors now. Every so often, I'll try to count the bodies, memorializing them, if only in aggregate. but my body is usually steering me away before I can get a good look at everyone. It's a shame, because I'm very good at memorization, always have been, actually, and I'd keep an accurate tally if I was allowed. Now that has done me favors. My memory is what allows me to write this. Writing still brings satisfaction even when I'm the whole audience, but I digress. My point is, I am a writer, and with some effort, I can still do it in a limited fashion. I construct narratives. Here are 2 narratives. The first entails me being placed into a body that goes around and makes people kill each other in a blind panic. I am a decent person, and I find this very tragic, and I wish that it wasn't happening, or at the very least, that I was not forced to participate. Even the faintest whiff of agency is enough to make me doubt and blame myself. It happens anyways. The second entails me being placed in a body that goes around and makes people kill each other in a blind panic. I'm an evil man who takes great joy in this, and only wishing that I could take control of my body and do it more often. Every moment where I can move for myself gives me hope that this might happen. Things proceed as normal. You'll notice that empathy and decency only cause me anguish. I doubt they'll alleviate the pain of being crushed under a pile of screaming humanity. My teachers always said that a logical, detached perspective was one of my strengths. There's a moment when the crowd's fervor reaches its fever pitch, where I have a chance to express myself. Not speech, unfortunately, but whatever I'm feeling comes out if I let it. I'm tired of crying. Maybe I should laugh. Which then cycles back around to SCP-1268. So apparently SCP-1268 is a person that something happened to, that now all they can do is just go wherever their body wants and then feel bad about it. Stalker Mailbox. Also Euclid. And it's 1269. Nice. So, the property where SCP-1269 is located is to remain under the custody of the Foundation. No females 23 years of age or over... Did I say that right? Okay. Are to enter the property, except for testing purposes. 1 male researcher is to reside within the property under the guise of the current resident and is to monitor the behavior of 1269. Description. SCP-1269 is a black aluminum curbside mailbox possessing a red flag and a white plastic post. It stands 1.3 meters tall, with the mailbox measuring 49.5 centimeters by 15.2 by 17.7, consistent with any T2 mailbox size in the United States. The number something is printed on the side, or on the right side. It lacks any manufacturer's marks and has minor dents and abrasions, suggesting the object has been present on the same property for some time. Due to the nature of its effect, the object is permanently located somewhere in Massachusetts, in front of house number something on Somewhere Avenue. The anomalous properties will manifest only when a single female 23 years of age or older, hereafter referred to as the occupant, resides within the same property as 1269. Approximately 2 weeks after the occupant moves in, it will start to manifest unaddressed letters every 4 days. The contents of the letters are romantic in nature and are targeted towards the occupant of the house. Surveillance within 1269 has shown the letters manifest approximately 3 seconds after the occupant's mail has been delivered. Exactly 3 weeks after the appearance of the first letter, the secondary anomalous properties will manifest. The letters will begin appearing daily, with contents becoming increasingly more obsessive and erratic until the point the letters regress into single sentences. In some occasions, multiple letters will appear within 1269. Additionally, when not under direct supervision of the occupant, it will teleport to a location near the occupant and face them. This location will be partially obscured, such as behind windows, cracked doors, and shower curtains. Under special circumstances, such as during sleep or when obscured by darkness, 1269 will teleport near the occupant without obstruction. Whether or not the occupant relocates 1269, the object will continue to teleport between a range of 1 to 5 times every 12 hours. It will not follow the occupant off the property, and all anomalous parties will cease manifesting after the occupant has either moved or expired. Attempts to remove 1269 from its location have so far been unsuccessful. It will teleport to its original curbside location after 1 hour of relocation. If attempts are made to replace it with a new mailbox, the mailbox will be teleported away, with 1269 appearing in its place. Approximately 3 hours after the disappearance of the new mailbox, it will reappear in a dumpster 25 kilometers away, behind an abandoned blank franchise. Mailboxes recovered so far have all been found in varying amounts of disrepair within garbage bags and covered with and painted on words and phrases. Addendum A. On July 12, 2004, disposable 69-124, a male, was moved onto the property with the current test occupant 72803 after 7 weeks had passed. It stopped teleporting at this time. 3 days later, 69-124 disappeared from the property, causing 1269 to resume all anomalous behavior. 2 weeks after disappearance, he was found in a similar location as the other replacement mailboxes. The subject was found within a large garbage bag with severe bruising and lacerations, an apparently fatal blow to the head, and a lack of hands and lips. See document B for recorded phrasing. Okay, so what's document A? Transcribed below are several letters delivered to 871-523, who temporarily resided within the property for testing. And that was in 1998. Okay, and what's document B? Transcribed below are various phrases written on mailboxes disposed of by 1269. See Addendum A. Okay, so this is an angry possessive mailbox. I didn't read these out loud because the first half felt cringy and the second half is just a different kind of cringy. So hopefully I've lingered on it long enough for you guys to read them, because I am not. Anywho, man with a gun. Don't make that joke. Don't make that joke. Okay, so SCP-1270. It's safe? The building containing 1270 has been purchased by the Foundation via a front company, which is probably SCP something, and is to be kept unoccupied. Except for purposes of monitoring or approved experimentation, all access to the building is forbidden. Security personnel engaging one are not to use flares or incendiary weapons. Personnel whose clothing has been contaminated by one's blood or other bodily fluids are not to return to the stairwell outside 1270 until such time as on-site analysis has been either completed or aborted. Description: SCP-1270 is a phenomenon localized to the top floor of a 3-story office building in the redacted industrial park outside the city of somewhere, whereby any intrusion onto the top floor triggers the manifestation somewhere on that floor of an entity, henceforth one, resembling a male adult human armed with a shotgun. Let's see. See document 4M for operational parameters on what is considered an intrusion. Upon manifesting, fiber optic microcameras inserted via floor and rooftop boreholes have conclusively shown that one does not exist in the absence of intruders. One will attack intruders, firing at them and pursuing them through the rooms and corridors of the top floor until all intruders have either been killed, fatally injured, or driven out of its territory. Consisting of a hallway, 5 office suites, and a washroom. See document E6 for details. If SCP-1270-1 is killed, its cadaver instantly demanifests and another instance manifests somewhere else on the top floor. It never leaves the boundaries of the top floor. If subsequent to being captured or disarmed, it is carried across the threshold between the main hallway and the stairwell. It instantly demanifests and another instance manifests elsewhere on the top floor. Demanifestation of one as a whole and subsequent remanifestation also results when tissue or fabric samples from one are taken across the threshold into the stairwell or passed out of an open window. The minimum sample size necessary to trigger this effect is not known, but the effect has been observed to result from sub-millimeter amounts of blood splatter. Consequently, all forensic analysis of samples must be performed on-site. One's ammunition likewise demanifests upon exiting the borders of 1270, but does not trigger the demanifestation of one as a whole. Analysis of its identifying characteristics has been inconclusive. Its facial features have been found to be those of redacted, inhabitant of somewhere in Utah, face on record as a result of several arrests for vagrancy, public intoxication, and shoplifting. Its fingerprints have been found to be those of redacted, an inhabitant of somewhere in Newfoundland, fingerprints on records, a result of several arrests for public intoxication and indecent exposure. Its DNA matches that of redacted, currently serving a life sentence in New South Wales for various sexual offenses, and its teeth display such advanced decay that the Foundation forensic dentists have stated that identification via dental records is not feasible. Its shotgun is a Mossberg 590, but with a serial number indicating a Mossberg 590A1. When interrogated post-capture, one responds with a constant stream of invective and profanity in various languages, including English, Cantonese, Arabic, Bengali, Portuguese, Hungarian, and Dutch. So next up would be Kickball Field at Sheckler Elementary, Slow Motion Catastrophe, Stuck, Dance Craze, and Silent Bandit. Alright, so the kickball field is Euclid. Fencing is to be constructed around the area containing 1271, with a space of 75 meters between the fencing and 1271. This perimeter is to be monitored by no fewer than 5 guards at any given time, who are to deny civilians access, access to 1271. Guards are to be equipped with high-powered cameras with telephoto lenses and are to be trained in their use. SCP-1271 is to be monitored via video surveillance at all times. During a 1271A event, all guards are instructed to, it used to say, prevent the commencement of the 1271A event and detain all civilians involved, observe the event and attempt to detain all civilians involved. Now it says maintain a distance of 25 meters or greater from it during the event and make no attempt to interact with any of the civilians. During the event, guards are to take as many close-in photographs of the faces of civilians using 1271 as possible. No fewer than 12 parabolic microphones with diameters of 17 meters are to be trained on the field at any given time. During the events, microphones are to be focused on individual civilians, and all spoken dialogue is to be recorded to aid in identification of affected civilians. All audio and visual data for each civilian are to be compiled and cross-referenced against all available databases using facial recognition software. Under no circumstances are Foundation personnel to enter within 25 meters of 1271 during an event. Under no circumstances is any Foundation technology to be left within the field, except during authorized testing. All individuals identified as having participated in any event are to be detained at Site 34 and questioned. Description: SCP-1271 is a square tract of land approximately 20 meters on each side, roughly landscaped into a functional kickball field. The field comprised a portion of the grounds of the Sheckler Elementary School in Catasauqua, Pennsylvania. Before the school was closed in 1967. Pennsylvania, why are you like this? Why are your cities like this? The grounds have been abandoned ever since. Approximately once per year, typically within 2 weeks of the summer solstice, 1271 becomes occupied by 16 civilians ranging from 5 to 11 years of age. The means by which these civilians, identified here as SCP-1271 1-16, travel to it is unknown. Civilians have been noted originating from every continent and 124 countries. All affected civilians demonstrate symptoms of a trance state and are unwilling or unable to communicate with or acknowledge Foundation and researchers in any way. Most children who are located, identified, and interviewed later claim to have no memory of their activities involving 1271 and are unable to contribute to Foundation understanding of the mechanisms underlying 1271. Upon arriving at the site of 1271, civilians will begin carrying out a game of kickball, according to accepted conventions of game rules. These games are referred to as A events. Civilians will divide themselves into 2 teams of 8 apiece and play 3 full innings. Throughout the game, civilians will display body language indicating pleasure and enjoyment, including smiling faces, laughing, and excited speech. The speech itself typically involves a syntax and vocabulary closely resembling the Unami language of the indigenous American Indian population of the region. At the conclusion of the game, the players will bow in the direction of the pitcher's mound and conduct a brief chant in the Unami language before dispersing. The chant closely resembles the Unami phrase, Sela ni eka qui tali, whatever that is, ni sa ao nik, which translates loosely to, over there under the trees, 2 people were buried. As the affected civilians reach the perimeter of 1271, they disappear from the area via an unknown form of teleportation. 2 additional anomalous effects have been noted with regards to 1271. First, when individuals not summoned to 1271 enter the area within 25 meters of the field during the events, they will begin participating in the game. This participation will divide evenly between the 2 teams, either substituting for exhausted players or carrying out work such as supplying water or towels to players. At the conclusion of the game, individuals affected in this way disappear in the same manner as affected civilians. No affected Foundation personnel have yet been recovered. The second anomalous effect associated is documented in Addendum 1, and here it is! Documented patterns of affected civilians. Since the Foundation began monitoring 1271 in 1972, 480 civilian children from around the world have been affected. Efforts to determine the identities of affected civilians began shortly thereafter, and was aided by the digitization and computerization of Foundation records and databases during the 1980s. Through the use of facial recognition software, the Foundation has been able to identify 126 of the civilians affected to date. During standard correlational analysis of the identified civilians, certain patterns were detected relating specifically to the position played by affected civilians. For purposes of the analysis, the team that begins the game on offense is designated red, while the team beginning in the game on defense, I added words, is designated blue. To date, only 10% of recovered civilians have any memory of their experiences with 1271. Show addendum. Is it all 100? Okay, just certain ones. Alright, so the first one, red team first baseman, first kicker, develops and pursues an interest in banking, leading to an executive level position at a major international banking firm. 30 total instances, 9 identified, 7 having given trait. 2. Dies before age 18. Dang. Pursues an interest in education, becomes a college-level economics professor. No one has been identified from red team roller or fourth kicker. 5th kicker. Develops an interest in aeronautics, takes a high-ranking job in American, Russian, or Chinese space development agencies. 6. Becomes a trusted advisor to an individual in a position of authority over an international body of some kind. Lists of specific individuals and qualifying bodies included in document 1271 beta. 7th kicker dies at age 23. 8th. Becomes famous in the visual arts, particularly acting. Blue team first kicker. Develops an interest in chemistry. Identified instances typically take up work in pharmacology. Several instances personally responsible for the development of breakthrough drugs for a variety of illnesses. Let me take a sip of this soda. Soda probably won't make the dehydration stop, but it helps. 2nd kicker blue team takes up a career in politics, becomes a head of state or high-ranking politician in their nation of origin. 3rd kicker becomes addicted to barbiturates before age 25, dies before age 27. Dang. No 4th kicker blue have been identified. 5th kicker blue gains a position of leadership. No pattern has yet been determined beyond this. Roles can vary from corporate chairman to factory foreman, but will involve high levels of authority. 6th kicker develops an interest in religion, becomes an authoritative figure in religious movement. Religions involved may vary and are typically global in reach, however, 2 identified instances have led cults involving data expunged. And 7th kicker develops an interest in electronics technology, becomes known as an innovative engineer, pioneering in telecom or internet technology. And there's no 8th kickers. Okay, interview logs, Gamma. Alright. SCP-1271-11 Gamma served as third baseman for the blue team in an A event that transpired in 1981. His image was identified using photo recognition and aging software in 1994 at a collegiate catalog from the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga. Given his connection to 1271, the individual was detained for questioning and held for observation for several years. Dr. Hicks. Have you ever consumed illegal narcotics? Never. Before whatever it was that happened when I was a kid, we lived in a good neighborhood. My mom told me about drugs, told me not to try them. This was back in the late 70s, you know, that stuff was everywhere. But she raised me right, and it wasn't always easy. Could you elaborate? Well, like I said, that was how she raised me, and that's how things were back in the day, but things got bad around the time I was, I think 12 or so? Note, Subject 11 Gamma was 11 years of age when the event transpired. Yeah, I don't know, my dad, he was this real straight-laced guy, right? Factory worker out at the Goodyear plant, amazing guy, hard worker, and then one day it seems like the cops show up? The drug arrest, correct? Yeah, phenobarbital. He was fine one day, he was in jail the next. They didn't have evidence to hold him, so he got out, and he was such a fucking prick after that, I swear to God. Behavior changes. Yeah, he and my mom both. They were so in love before, then suddenly it was... Jesus, it was a nightmare. He was hitting me, he was hitting her, she wouldn't leave. She loved him, he was doing drugs, and then she was doing drugs. I swear to God, it got so bad, he wanted me to start doing drugs. Said it would calm me down. Said it would keep me from thinking I was better than him. Tried to make me take them. That's when I left. Ran away. Yeah, I took the guidance counselor. Tried the guidance counselor, it was like she wasn't even there. Teachers too. I just booked it, left town. Look, I got out of there. Went a few towns over, got a foster program. It sucked exactly as much as you think, but I just stayed in the books, you know, kept my head down. And avoided drugs. It was hard. Everyone was into it around me, tried to push it on me. All that shit you get in DARE, the peer pressure, violence, everything. All the way into college. It seems like everyone around me got into it either right before or right after I met them, and they all wanted to share. It got worse the older I got. I graduated a few months ago. I was glad to get away from that. I understand. Approximately 3 days before 11 Gamma's 25th birthday, Dr. Hicks assaulted him and forcibly injected phenobarbital into his system. No orders to do so had been given. 11 Gamma developed an addiction and was terminated, attempting to assault a nurse 4 months later. Dr. Hicks claimed temporary insanity. Medical tests revealed a small brain tumor had developed, impairing his judgment. So it looks like it's not so much that they get addicted to drugs normally, as reality just decides, hey, guess what? You're going to be addicted to drugs now, no matter the cost. Okay, Epsilon. 1271-14 Epsilon. Subject Epsilon was in charge of the largest cadre of a cult known as the Brotherhood of the Rubicon, in Johannesburg, South Africa. Subject was captured in a Foundation raid against their safe house and was identified as an outfielder in an A event in 1989. How did you come to join the Brotherhood? I was not born to greatness. Greatness found me. God found me in the back of a field and spoke lies to me. I see the truth now. I speak truth now. I'm sorry, I'm afraid I don't. You think you know what that field is? God spoke lies to me. God spoke lies to all of us. Said that wrong, oh well. God fears us because we have a new Lord. She will lead us to his throne. You think you know what that field is? I was not born to greatness. Or are you suggesting that SCP-1271 compelled or changed you in some way? God is the least of what lives in that field. Those things choose you and send you into the world. God spoke lies to me. The things in that field chose us, trained us, shaped us. We are what they make us. You think you know what that field is? You believe your fate was destined. They speak lies to us until the lies become truth. The field showed me the Rubicon. The Rubicon will help me kill God. Did the field tell you to kill God? Did it tell you how? God lives in that field. God is the least of what lives in that field. I speak truth now. They were deemed an unreliable witness due to untreatable paranoid schizophrenia and terminated. And now for Subject 13 Theta. They served as a blue team left outfielder in the first recorded event in 1972. They were a member of Redacted when facial identification algorithms identified him in 2011. Due to his position, several red alerts were triggered in Foundation computers, and Subject 13 Theta was detained. He claimed to have no knowledge of his involvement with 1271, interview heavily redacted to prevent disclosure of sensitive information. Do you have any recollection of your involvement with SCP-1271? Fucking of course not, Grace! I told you that yesterday. You think I would have accepted the job at Redacted if I thought I'd been recruited at a cakeball game when I was 11? Give me a little more credit than that. Of course not. However, several influential academics, politicians, and scientists have been identified as being involved with SCP-1271, almost always without their prior knowledge. And I know you also identified a high priest of the Church of the Broken God, a mid-level executive of Marshall Carter Dark Limited, and 2 Serpentine cell leaders among affected personnel. I used to get these reports, so the other Redacted decided one of us was in on it too. You believe this is a conspiracy led by other members of Redacted. It's not a conspiracy when the good guys do it, Graves. It's a plan. They considered me expendable, and so I was expended. Security can say they did their job, we all go home happy. Unless there really is some brainwashed freak high and Redacted who is liable to snap and take us all out. Several minutes of conversation redacted due to the involvement of sensitive containment information. How would you respond to the following phrase? Dr. Grace recites the Unami chant that marks the end of each 1271A event. I would say that you don't know what trails off. Sir? Are you with us? Begins mumbling in Unami language, falls unconscious. Subject 13 Theta remanded to medical wing for treatment, while in medical care, subject escaped containment using his knowledge of Site 34's authorization codes to leave the premises. Subject has not yet been recaptured. Unami phrase uttered before unconscious is translated to, but the children's footprints are numerous. So would it be over there under the trees 2 people were buried, but the children's footprints are numerous is the whole thing? Or is it something else? It sounds like that person was a member of the O5 Council. Maybe. Slow motion catastrophe. That one entry took 14 and a half minutes. Dang. Okay, so, SCP-1272. 1272's constituent artifacts are to be maintained at a range of no closer than 41 meters, and it's Euclid, by the way. and no more distant than 74 kilometers. No two artifacts with a collective W-axis deviations of greater than 38 degrees are to approach within 8 kilometers of any other topological anomaly. Due to the continuing risk of containment breach, all objects are to be affixed to their pedestals with permanent restraints upon successful containment. Due to risk presently posed by 6, active containment efforts are presently suspended. Revised containment procedures are pending. After a breach of containment protocols on March 27th in 1973, SCP-1272, 1, 2, 3, and 4 remain uncontained. Until such a time as containment is re-established, one containment team is to enter the anomaly every 4 months, attempt to reach the containment vault door, and attempt to contact previous containment teams to advise them to deviate from pre-2003 containment protocols. Before approaching the topological singularity, agents assigned to the containment team must undergo psychological pre-screening. At pre-screening, containment agents should be advised that at present topological density, successful containment is expected to be completed on March 18th, 2394, 423 years from initial entry. So, present suicidal ideation is non-disqualifying. At agent's request, Foundation survivor benefits are to be paid to the designated beneficiary immediately upon entry into the containment area. At all times, the topological anomaly is to be monitored via closed-circuit television by a designated Foundation exit counselor. Garments appropriate to all eras of team entry are to be maintained on site. Upon scheduled or unscheduled team exit, debrief is mandatory. Debrief subject matter should be restricted to those matters necessary to assess psychological suitability to return to duty and technical aspects of the anomaly. Inappropriate topics for debrief include surviving family members, if any, classified information unrelated to the Site-53 anomaly, and Foundation matters outside the scope of the team's historical clearance level. Counselors should expect readjustment shock. Class C amnestics are to be made available upon request. Okay, so let me drink some more soda. Okay, description. SCP-172, 1, 2, 3, and 4 are 4 identical statues apparently sculpted by a Corsican neoclassical revivalist Emile Abruzzo in the early to mid-1950s. Early photographs of the statues depict a child between the ages of 11 and 14 wearing unremarkable early Renaissance garb and carrying a cloth bag. Since that time, the statues have exhibited worsening topological anomalies, and at the time of containment breach were unrecognizable as their original subjects. By 1961, while in Foundation custody, the statues' W-axis deviations stabilized at 7, 13, 19, and 23 degrees respectively. Though unknown at the time, permitting objects with summed W deviations of greater than 38 degrees to approach within 41 meters of a topological anomaly results in a topological involution which rapidly evolves towards a non-gravitational singularity. What? On March 27, 1973, this occurred, resulting in a containment breach and SCP-1272-5. 5 is the non-gravitational singularity which resulted from mishandling of 1, 2, 3, and 4. At present, 5 involves Maintenance Corridor 2A of Site-53, the topological anomaly containment vault, and sealed portions of 2 control rooms abutting the corridor. Involvement of spatial dimensions is minimal, resulting in a 19-degree twist and 31-degree leftward deflection of Maintenance Corridor 2A. Involvement of time-like dimensions is extreme. In much of the affected corridor, subjective time is estimated to pass at a rate of 184 nanoseconds per external hour. The ratio of external to internal time at the anomaly's epicenter is presently unknown. SCP-1272-6 is a human male aged 27 to 35, first detected by CCTV slightly beyond 1's containment vault door on December 17, 2003. Appearance is inconsistent, with agents or researchers known to be working at Site-53 at the time of initial containment breach. However, due to the uniform dark blue coloration of features and clothing, resolving facial details has remained persistently difficult for observation staff. Since first detected, 6 has traveled 4 meters into the anomaly-affected hallway without apparent detection by containment teams proceeding towards the vault. On high-speed video, gait is persistent with a brisk walk. Per Dr. Collins, researchers should note that the subject's coloration appears to be the result of blue shift, not natural coloration. Presuming a logarithmic decrease in the rate of subjective time on approach to the singularity, 6 is presently exiting the vault at 41% of the speed of light. If 6 fails to decelerate, or if containment teams dispatched before detection successfully realign 1, 2, 3, or 4, exits predicted to occur on or before blank blank blank, resulting in massive thermal damage to Site 53 and surrounding populated areas. Wait. So, what the fuck was this called? Slow motion catastrophe. So, there's 4 statues that apparently fucked up the space-time continuum in this one hallway. Everybody in there can only move at a pace of 180-something nanoseconds per hour. But there's a thing in there that's moving at, what was the amount? 41% the speed of light. And they're trying to send people in there to stop the thing that's moving at 41% the speed of light, because if they ever actually fix containment and unfuckify the space-time continuum, that thing is going to go from 41% the speed of light to over the speed of light inside of a building. This article, while interesting, makes approximately 0 sense. I don't know who wrote this. I don't know who was allowed to write this. I don't know who got it posted or who allowed that to happen. But this explained damn near nothing about what this SCP actually is. Unless the SCP is just the thing moving at 41% the speed of light, in which case, what was the point of all the rest of this? Well, okay, SCPs 1, 2, 3, and 4 are the statues that broke the space-time continuum. SCP-5 is the space-time continuum being broken, and SCP-6 is the actual slow-motion catastrophe. So, why is 6 not just SCP-1272? Why even mention all the rest of this as if any of it is as important as the thing moving at 41% the speed of light in slow motion? Even with the thing being 180-something nanoseconds every hour, I'm pretty sure that at 41% the speed of light, it's gonna be soon. I may not offhand know what the speed of light is, but anything that can do 41% of it being slowed down to nanoseconds to the hour doesn't mean anything. Especially since they're like, oh, it's not actually blue, it's blue because it's moving so fast, despite the slow motion, and it's just walking at 41% the speed of light. Why is any of the rest of this considered to be part of the SCP? Why is it not just the thing moving at 41% the speed of light? Anyway, next SCP, which is just called Stuck. Just like everything in the... Okay. Was stuck. It was safe, not anymore. What did it used to say? SCP-1273 is to be kept in the containment locker number 434 at Site 23 when not being actively used for testing by disposable dudes. It is not to be connected to any electrical power source, oh no, except for testing purposes. A is to be treated as non-hostile but potentially dangerous. Now it says, SCP-1273-A remains indefinitely in testing chamber 741, and is to be monitored at all times. I don't know why I'm pointing at the laptop, y'all can't see it. Personnel are forbidden from entering the chamber until further notice. No testing of anomalous objects is to take place in Test Hall Delta as of May the 11th, 2014, and in the event of a containment breach, the hallway should be completely sealed off. You know, you should seal it off with those 4 statues that mess up space-time. Because I don't think anything in this SCP is moving at 41% the speed of light because the SCP is called Stuck! Alright, that's not the right word. SCP-1273 is a blank brand children's nightlight, excuse me. No materials comprising the structure of this object have been identified as individually anomalous. The object has been designed to resemble a stylized rabbit, and functions as a non-anomalous nightlight. Is this by the factory? Did the factory do this? The object has been designed to resemble a stylized rabbit, blah, 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 blah. It functions as a non-anomalous nightlight for the first 30 minutes of being connected to a working power source and turned on. At this point, The anomalous effects will activate, and an entity, hereby designated A, will manifest in the area containing 1273. If the object is turned off or disconnected from the power source during the manifestation of its anomalous properties, the entity will demanifest until the next activation event. SCP-1273-A appears to be a Caucasian female humanoid entity of approximately teenage appearance. The entity refers to itself as Abigail Lawrence, a citizen of the town of somewhere, where 1273 was initially discovered. Foundation information confirms that an individual bearing the same name and description of the entity formerly lived in the town, but was reported dead as of March the 9th, 2014. The aforementioned person's parents had discovered their deceased child in her room on the aforementioned date, along with 1273 and several other anomalous objects whose function appears to be redacted. The entity is visually indistinguishable from a non-anomalous human subject, however. It is unable to make physical contact with anything that is not a boundary of the room currently housing 1273. Used to say, all other objects cannot be manipulated by the subject. What does it say now? See incident report me. Is it in here? This looks pretty long, it might be. As such, A cannot leave the room it manifests in. Upon manifestation, the subject typically appears to be distressed and attempts to remove 1273 from its power source. Due to the entity's intangible nature, these actions are consistently futile. Interview log 1273 Alpha. The following interview was taken upon initial manifestation of 1273's anomalous effects by the presiding head researcher, Dr. Lloyd. Interviewed, A. Interviewer, Dr. Lloyd. Forward, this is the first recorded appearance of A. Begin log. Hello! My name is Dr. Jason Lloyd. I'm going to ask you a few questions now, if you don't mind. Too quiet to be understood. I'm sorry, what was that? Tries to look at Dr. Lloyd, appears distressed. Can I go back? Go back? Where? Note that the subject seems to appear distressed. I was never supposed to come back here. Begins to attempt to remove the SCP from the power source. It is apparently intangible as this is... Oh, is she a ghost? Please, calm down. We can help you. But you have to help us first. Holds out his hand as a gesture of peace. Shakes head. Please don't touch me. You can't help me. I don't need help. Just please let me go back. Go back? Where? Away! The place I was before. It was so much better than this. Just please unplug this thing. SCP-1273-A, I'm gonna need more information from you before we can release you. Ceases to attempt to remove it from its power source. And then I can go back? Yes, then you can go back. Okay. My name was Abigail Lawrence. I was 16 years old, and I'm from Plank. I don't really remember how I got into the light, but I know it's my home. Was? Well, you see, I'm not exactly... Waves hand through 1273. I see. Are you completely positive you can't remember anything at all about how you got to be this way? I'm sorry, I really can't. I see. If you do remember anything, please don't hesitate to tell us. Now, what's your home like? It's amazing and bright and freeing and... Oh, please let me go back just for a bit. I can't stand it here any longer. Dr. Lloyd confers with research team for approximately 3 minutes. Alright, SCP-1273-A, you can go for now. We'll see you soon enough. End log. Dr. Lloyd proceeded to turn off the object and remove it from its power source, causing A to demanifest. Interview log beta. Dr. Lloyd, the following interview takes place 1 week after the events comprising Alpha and mark the second activation. So soon. Hello, SCP-1273-A. Do you recall any more details on the events that led you to existing in your current state since our last interview? I'm afraid not, Doctor. I see. Well, can you tell me more about the place you come from? I'm afraid that's not allowed. Not allowed? Who wasn't allowing this? Please, put me back. Abby, please answer the question. Does not respond. Subject remained unresponsive for the remainder of the interview. Following half an hour of unresponsiveness, powered it down. Research Kappa. Okay, a lot has happened. The following is a series of excerpted notes taken from Dr. Lloyd's experimentation notebook. All excerpts are from notes taken during a series of interviews. Will not tell us any more about this place. It's quite obvious she's lying about not remembering the process, but why is she hiding it? Researcher Garrison thinks. Realize that we can encourage the information out of it by refusing to let it go back until it tells us. That's not encouragement, that's, not blackmail? Torture? Hostage. Hostage, that's the one. The plane the entity comes from is apparently devoid of all physical matter completely. The entity is being slightly more cooperative, but is apparently trying to deliberately impede Foundation understanding of this area. Agent Blank and Agent Blank appear to be slowly earning A's trust, and researchers are about to confer about how to possibly use this in conjunction with punishment in the future. That sounds dumb. On May the 11th, 2014, during routine testing of 1273's responsiveness to alternative power sources, which says, specifically the effectiveness of circuits powered by alkaline batteries, the object's light bulb burned out. However, unlike a typical deactivation event, A did not demanifest. The entity noticed this, became panicked, and started attempting to remove 1273 from its power source. Personnel proceeded to accomplish this task, which did not cause the entity to demanifest. A violently approached Agent Blank and attempted to assault her while shouting at the subject. Let's see. As A had previously proven to be intangible, Agent did not make any attempt to defend herself. The entity was noted to say, "This is your fault," repeatedly. Instead of passing through the agent as was expected, the entity's appendages appeared to become trapped in the subject's physical body. This caused further distress to A, who vocalized more loudly and struggled to remove itself from Agent Blank's form. As the entity made increasing contact with the agent's body, A appeared to be absorbed into it. After approximately 3 minutes, the entity was fully absorbed into Agent's body. The agent appears to have died during this process. On-site personnel reported a lack of respiration and pulse from Agent and tentatively declared her to be dead. Soon after, the chamber was cleared of all personnel and objects save for the corpse of the subject in order to monitor any possible anomalies resulting from this event. Incident Report Mew-2. After approximately 3 hours of observation, A emerged from the corpse. The entity was noticeably panicked at this time, and began attempting to strike the walls and doors of the chamber while shouting. The entity was noted to say several phrases repeatedly, notably, "Let me out," and "Don't make me choose between these two prisons." These actions persisted for approximately 45 minutes, at which point A moved to the center of the room and assumed a fetal position. The entity did not move from this position for 4 hours. Then it stood up and approached the corpse. A was noted to be hesitant during the following actions. A entered the corpse and attempted to partially animate it, resulting in erratic movements. The object flung itself at the door of the testing chamber repeatedly for approximately 60 minutes before A emerged, returned to its position in the center of the room, and began crying. The entity is to be continually monitored until further notice. At Audio Log Sigma. The following excerpts are segments of audio taken from the testing chamber housing A during Foundation monitoring. "I didn't mean to kill her. You don't understand how it feels to be trapped. You don't understand the feeling of being restricted because you've never known being free. Please let me out. I can show you. I just want to go home." And they didn't think to just put a new bulb in the nightlight? Did they even try? You've got a ghost girl who you basically figured out how to befriend specifically to torture her. Accidentally deleted her ability to go back to not being a ghost, and then just watched as she freaked out for 4 hours instead of... The Foundation is just nothing but terrible people. Nothing but terrible people. Nothing but terrible people. Just terrible people. It is SCP Foundation. Secure, contain, be terrible. SCP-1274 is Euclid procedures. News media and internet video sites are to be scanned continuously for any of the keywords found in Addendum 1. We're not even at the Addendum yet. Calm down. Internet video should be suppressed as far as possible. Through copyright takedown requests from Sound Content Productions, a Foundation Front Corporation. See, now I'm wondering if I've ever gotten hit by that. These are to include key phrases which will bring them to the attention of agents placed within the hosting organization. News reports indicating outbreaks of 1274 or its tertiary effects should be investigated in the guise of a quarantine action intended to prevent the spread of an aggressive form of viral meningitis. Any instances of one discovered in the course of an investigation are to be contained in individual windowless cells. Meals and standard hygiene facilities are to be provided. Any entertainment media without music may be offered upon request, at the discretion of the lead researcher. Interviews with one instances are to be performed with physical restraints in place to prevent movement of the subject's arms and legs. Experimental treatments for tertiary effects of 1274 may be administered with approval from the lead researcher and the ethics committee. If you're bringing the ethics committee into this, this must be really bad. SCP-1274 is a proprioceptive mimetic hazard in the form of a novel style of dance. It shows influences from various Caribbean dance styles and the American urban form known as crumping. I vaguely remember that, but only just. The dance is done in groups in a follow-the-leader fashion, with one dancer performing a series of moves, which are then emulated by the other participants. The style is improvisational in some respects, but has a core repertoire of blank distinct movements which appear repeatedly. A specific sequence of some of these movements appears to be the contagious agent. 1274 is safe to observe live or via recordings. Transmission only occurs when the key sequence of movements is performed by a subject, hereafter known as 1. Shortly after infection, subjects experience powerful euphoria and increased empathy with other dancers. Additionally, instances of 1274-1 display the following cognitive changes: increased sexual receptiveness, greatly increased suggestibility, preference for consensus-based conflict resolution, reduced need for sleep varies by individual, but some instances have shown no adverse effects from 2 hours of sleep nightly, and a marked preference for the color orange. Alright. Tertiary neurological effects begin to appear within 2 to 6 weeks of initial exposure, with speed of onset strongly correlated with the frequency of the performance. These include chronic sleep-onset insomnia, progressive abnormal involuntary movement disorder similar to Huntington's chorea but including movements from 1274's repertoire, and language pathologies initially presenting as intermittent schizophasia and progressing to total aphasia combined with random utterances similar to glossolalia. Pharmaceutical interventions and physical therapies that have proven effective in the management of Huntington's disease appear to have little effect on the progression of neurological symptoms. Amnestic drug therapy has shown some efficacy in eliminating the mimetic component, but appears ineffective once neurological symptoms have manifested. SCP-1274 was first discovered in Redacted, a medium-sized American city with a significant minority population of Dominican descent. However, no evidence of contagion has been found in the Dominican Republic itself. Reports of anomalous neurological disorders among young people in the city's club culture led Foundation agents to the discovery of the hazard. Blank 100 instances of one were contained in a raid on a warehouse party, followed by blank additional instances gathered as a part of a subsequent public health action. Since then, blank additional outbreaks have occurred primarily in cities of population 300,000 or less in the southeastern United States. Additionally, 3 instances of instructional video for the dance have been found on popular internet video sites. While these have been successfully removed by Foundation action, the number of exposed individuals is unknown. This was last edited on July the 14th of 2020, so could have been TikTok. Probably. The Silent Bandit. Is it a raccoon? It's Keter. It is not a raccoon. It's an orb. It's a crystal. Nothing more. But if you look into it, but if you hold it this way and look into it, it will show you your dreams. Anyway, Labyrinth references aside badly. SCP-1275 is held at Containment Area 43, located in the Gobi Desert. It is to be contained inside a hollow 750mm tungsten cube, filled with an electrified tungsten wire lattice dividing the space into cubic millimeter sections. The remaining space is to be continually filled from the bottom of the box with lead maintained at 1200 degrees Celsius. The primary containment chamber is to be blast rated for pressures up to 200, whatever that means, with a secondary external chamber rated for up to 1500, whatever that means. 3 blast-shielded monitoring stations positioned equidistant around the perimeter from the station at 10 kilometers are to be kept staffed and on alert at all times. SCP-1275 is to be constantly monitored by a sonar, video feed, and the experimental Salzman device. Any notable changes in the object size or behavior to be immediately reported immediately reported to the head researcher and security department to prepare to resist any potential hostile Wait a minute, we never found out why the ethics committee was needed for the last thing. That never came up. Anyway. In the event of a full containment breach, a perimeter is to be established and a 30-kilometer radius is to be monitored via motion sensor and sonar to speed recontainment. Task forces assigned to recontainment of 1275 are to approach with the greatest caution, and to take defensive measures at any sign of an emergence. Under no circumstances may personnel approach within 30 meters of it if it is loose. Recontainment will be accomplished via specialized capture netting delivered by air. Personnel in the process of being enveloped by 1275 should be terminated if possible, unless otherwise authorized by level 4 personnel. Description. SCP-1275 is a fluid, amorphous entity of variable volume, shape, color, and opacity. Observed volumes of material composing the entity have ranged from 1 centimeter cubed minimum to a maximum of 30 meters cubed. It is affected by gravity and cannot pass through solid materials, yet registers no weight on instruments regardless of its current size. Parts separated from the main body appear to flow extra-dimensionally back to it, making sample tests unfeasible. It is not chemically reactive, shows no changes with variations in temperature, is not electrically conductive, and returns no tactile sensation. Due to these properties, 1275 is theorized not to exist fully within the material world. The entity is capable of forming itself into any shape, including flattening to less than approximately 0.01 millimeters thickness, minimum observed, spooling into a threaded form, or taking on the shape, color, and opacity of objects around it. If free, it attempts to envelop objects such as classified documents, SCP artifacts, or Foundation personnel. Upon enveloping an object, it will turn opaque and rapidly decrease in size, while the object enveloped will disappear from the inside. On occasion, it will attempt to disgorge explosives, weaponry, anomalous objects, and hostile agents in order to breach its containment. Observed behavior patterns indicate it to be intelligent and/or controlled by an outside intelligence. It has proven capable of breaching all but the most stringent of security measures, pressing its way through minor flaws in seals thought to be air and/or watertight, moving through air ducts and electrical systems, under carpet or tile, or flowing slowly through loose material such as dirt or sand. It attempts to avoid observation by blending in with its surroundings and remaining motionless. If noticed, it will move quickly and attempt to envelop personnel before they can raise an alarm. Objects and personnel enveloped were originally believed to be consumed, digested, or converted into energy. However, its capacity for flowing back to itself when separated and the emergence of objects suggests that it may have a second section elsewhere in the world that it moves portions of itself between. This would account for its fluctuations in volume and the disappearance of objects from within it. If this is the case, then the entity appears unable to pull the portion of itself held by the Foundation through to the other side. It is theorized that this is either the primary half or that it naturally has a divided existence. Attempts to intentionally send equipment back through 1275 have failed. Objects the entity does not wish to transport remain even if forcibly inserted. Evidence strongly suggests that the entity sides with or is controlled by a hostile organization and that they are attempting to retrieve it. Due to the potential for theft of SCP artifacts and personnel, this is to be prevented by any means necessary. You know, if they just put the unkillable lizard in there, they can very quickly find out where the other half goes if it's on this dimension. Ow. Recovery Log 1275. On August the 15th, 2003, still frame analysis systems at Site-76 monitoring camera feeds outside of SCP-140's containment chamber found irregularities between frames and proceeded to initiate a lockdown of the area. Upon close examination, a small fluid object appeared to be attempting to enter 140's containment cell. A security team was dispatched to investigate, resulting in the loss of all 3 members. Containment attempts resulted in the loss of a further 7 security personnel and 2 agents before it could be brought under control. Upon further investigation and analysis of incidents at other Foundation sites, it was found that 1275 attempts to infiltrate facilities, locate objects or personnel of value to the Foundation, envelop them, and cause them to disappear. It was proven to be responsible for the previously unexplained loss of SCP blank 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 and blank. It is suspected that in the disappearance/theft of 17 other objects and entities from 10 different facilities over a span of 18 years, and the known loss of 49 personnel to date. To date, too little data has been recovered to establish a definite link to any specific group. Research attempts are being targeted at establishing a direct connection to an organization for the attempted retrieval of lost artifacts and personnel. Incident Log. August 15th of 2003, Entity repeatedly attempted to breach containment for a period of 8 months using its abilities with varying levels of success, causing loss of personnel and equipment. Initial containment procedures were developed at this time. After this, it went inactive and remained inert. A year and some change later, it began rapidly disgorging high-energy explosives in all directions, causing serious damage to the facility, though apparently none to itself. Its renewed attempts at containment breach, all of which were prevented. After containment was re-established, 1275 was moved to a new facility and put into a reinforced containment cell. A couple months later, explosives were disgorged in rapid succession, followed by visual surveillance equipment, transmitters, and anomalous objects now classified as SCP blank and blank, which are harmful to the containment cell walls and personnel on site. Internal breach efforts by 1275 resulted in the loss of 21 personnel before containment could be fully re-established. A couple days later, an unknown hostile retrieval team was intercepted attempting to reach 1275's location, but escaped without casualties. Containment site was moved again, and further countermeasures were put into play. A few months later, hostile agents armed with anomalous weaponry emerged from within 1275 and rapidly attempted to set up a base of operations within the containment cell. An attack was initiated against Foundation personnel. Containment on 1275 was breached shortly thereafter. Mobile task forces were sent in to engage and recover the object. After prolonged engagement, the enemy agents retreated into 1275. A couple months later, containment was established at its present location with the current procedures. The mesh grid has prevented 1275 from producing objects large enough to be capable of breaching its containment. The lead and electric current have prevented transmitters from signaling its location, and destroyed the majority of objects that have been sent through before they could fulfill their intended purpose. The possible emergence of anomalous objects capable of breaching containment cannot be ignored. Plans to deal with various scenarios are being devised by staff on site. So it sounds like this one's keter not exactly because it's actually dangerous, but that it's actively stealing information from the SCP Foundation, and it sounds like none of their normal enemies even know what it is. Interesting. So next up is the Venusian Launchpad. Alright, oh, it's a safe one finally. Instead of just a bunch of Euclid. Alright, so SCP-1276 is contained on site with a full research and security staff under the guise of a government-sanctioned archaeological dig team. All unauthorized individuals attempting to approach the area must be detained and questioned, then administered amnestics or terminated at the discretion of the security staff. All personnel must clear the upper platform at least 1 hour prior to activation events and remain clear for at least 30 minutes following confirmed activation. Activation experiments may only be performed with disposable dudes, and only with prior approval from at least 2 level 4 senior research staff. Description: SCP-1276 is a step pyramid of presumed Mayan construction 31 meters in height, 68 meters in width, and approximately 2,700 years old. Located in a remote area of the Redacted River Basin in Redacted. The structure is heavily engraved and believed to have been dedicated to astronomy and astrology. The anomalous property of 1276 is centered at a platform at the top of the structure, on which lies a 3.1 meter square of metallic plate of unknown composition. Unlike the rest of the structure, this platform shows no signs of aging and is heavily engraved with ancient Mayan hieroglyphs, as well as what is believed to be mythological figures along the outside perimeter, along with human figures prostrated before them. Whenever the heliacal rising of the planet Venus occurs, the platform atop 1276 is momentarily suffused with a blue glow, after which all living human subjects standing on the platform are instantly accelerated upwards into the atmosphere through unknown means to a speed of approximately 0.01 c at the exact moment that Venus appears above the horizon. Ground and satellite-based observatories have tracked and confirmed that all such subjects are launched in the direction of Venus and, barring outside intervention, will enter its atmosphere within a period of 3 to 24 hours after launch, depending on the relative distance between the Earth and Venus. It is not known at this time how subjects appear to not be affected by atmospheric heating when leaving the Earth's atmosphere. Even so, it is presumed that all unprotected test subjects have expired due to either the sudden acceleration or eventual asphyxiation. Development of a man-portable electronics package capable of surviving the launch process as well as interplanetary communication is ongoing. SCP-1276 was discovered at some point by a team of Mexican archaeologists and came to the Foundation's attention following its accidental activation, resulting in the deaths of 3 civilian team members. The surviving archaeologists were detained by the responding Foundation containment team. Addendum 1276-1, partial translation to platform inscription. Indecipherable offer to. Indecipherable upon this victorious day, that indecipherable of the sky, indecipherable may return in time, indecipherable. That partial translation sucks, but anyway, let's see, next up is Thirsty Cactus. Drink cactus juice, it'll quench ya, nothing's quenchier, it's the quenchiest! SCP-1277 is B, contained in Arboreal Containment Unit 41B at Site 77. Personnel assigned to care for 1277 are to be issued sound-dampening headgear. This headgear is to be worn at all times while in its presence. One is to be monitored via the use of a closed-circuit surveillance system located in Containment Unit 41B. Any jumps made by one are to be logged by security personnel. Description: SCP-1277 is an adult Carnegie gigantea, commonly known as the saguaro cactus. It has a height of 3.7 meters and weighs approximately 37 kilograms. It requires the same level of maintenance and care as a normal saguaro cactus. One is a male human skeleton, 1.4 meters tall and weighing 12 kilograms. It does not appear to suffer from degradation due to time or exposure. One is constantly located approximately 15 meters away from 1277. Attempts to remove one from this spot have met with failure due to one materializing itself next to 1277 if it is more than 15 meters away. Its anomalous effect will manifest itself any time a being capable of communicating in American English moves to a point within 15 meters of one. If this criterion is met, 1277 will begin to emit vocalizations. It is unknown how it is able to produce these vocalizations, as they do not have an apparent source of origin within the object. Vocalizations from 1277 consist of pleas to be given water and asking for shelter from the desert. These vocalizations will occur whether or not 1277 is in the presence of a desert or water. It will communicate with any person who speaks to it, but will only respond with more inquiries about water and shelter, and does not respond to inquiries about its origin or one. And here's an interview between Dr. Leipzig and the cactus. Can you tell me where you come from? So thirsty. Water. Do you have any water? I'm very thirsty and it's so dry here. I just want some water. We have already provided you with water. Can you please tell us more about your origin? I don't have any water. Where did you put it? I think it may have dried up from the heat. Can I come in with you? It's so dry out here. I'm sure I can answer your questions if we went in. We are currently indoors, 1277. Where do you think you are located? Hot, dry. It seems to stretch on for miles and miles, and no matter how far I crawl, the sun never, ever goes down, and I'm very thirsty. Can I please rest for a minute? The heat is getting to me. Please, hold on, I have more questions. End log. 1277 did not respond to further questioning and the interview was ended early. Okay. A picture frame. Look at this photograph! Every time I do, I redact it. SCP-1278 is safe. It is also to be contained in a standard medium security storage locker at site someplace. Due to the potential for misuse, access is restricted to level 3 personnel or higher. Any level 3 personnel wishing to access 1278 for research purposes may generate a password at any site somewhere terminal that will grant access to 1278. Please note that the password will expire after 24 hours. Use of 1278 for any purpose other than research is forbidden. Testing with underwater photographs or photographs taken of objects or locations outside of Earth's atmosphere is forbidden after tests 2 and 4. It looks like they are here. Description: SCP-1278 is a photo frame, 36 centimeters in length and 30 centimeters in height. The object is composed of a pine wood frame painted gold with a glass cover and a cardboard backing, as you do. A stainless steel latch can be found on all 4 edges of the cardboard backing. Opening the latches allows access to the interior of 1278, which is, yes, how picture frames work. Also present on the back is a cardboard leg attached to a stainless steel hinge to allow the frame to rest upright on a flat surface, and a hook on the top and left side of the object, allowing it to be hung on a wall in both portrait and landscape orientations. No information regarding who manufactured 1278 or when or where it was made is present on the object, but manufacturing methods and materials used, as well as tests of composition of the paint, indicates that it was built somewhere between 19-something and 2000-something. You know what you could have said? You know what you could have said instead of this whole paragraph is, it appears to be an ordinary picture frame from the 19 to the 2000. That's all you had to say. SCP-1278's unusual properties manifest when a photograph or piece of 2-dimensional art no larger than 25 by 20 centimeters is inserted into the object. The image will briefly shimmer, and waves will be seen radiating from the center of the image, visually similar to ripples on the surface of a pond. After a period of about 1 to 3 minutes, the frame will function as a two-way portal between the 2 locations. Removing the rear of 1278 allows the image to be removed, at which point the portal closes. The other end of the window appears as a 36 by 30 centimeter rectangle, apparently two-dimensional, with one side acting as a portal to the location of the object and the other being jet black, absorbing all frequencies of electromagnetic radiation. Any object small enough to fit through 1278 may be passed through from either side. Gases and electromagnetic radiation of all frequencies are also affected, and researchers should take care to avoid opening portals to locations inhospitable to human life except under carefully controlled conditions. I don't know if the microphone picked up that crunch, but I had a cough drop in. Test 1. Location depicted: the exterior site somewhere. Procedure: photograph inserted to frame. The researchers dispatch to the location to test the photograph to observe the exit. Results: effects manifest as normal. Exit observed. Sample not taken, as the exit is incorporeal on one side and indestructible on the other. It should also be noted that the exit acts as a perfect black body and may have research applications. Further testing regarding these properties awaiting approval from Site Command. Test 2. Location depicted: underwater photograph taken in Dr. Blythe's personal aquarium. Procedure: photograph inserted into frame as normal. Result: effects manifest as normal. Contents of aquarium immediately spill out onto the floor of the test chamber. Cleanup crew dispatched to the test chamber. Testing moved to chamber 14. Test 3. The exterior of site blank. Photograph taken with a 20 times telescopic zoom. Procedure: photo inserted into frame. Research team dispatched to location. Photo was taken. Effect. Result: effect manifests as normal. Exit of 1278 not found at location. Photo was taken. Portal found 15 meters from site. Photograph was taken 300 meters from site. So this thing accounts for zoom. I've got an idea. Dr. Blank. Okay, test 4. Location depicted: photograph taken by Hubble Space Telescope depicting the Horsehead Nebula. Zoom unknown. Procedure: D245 instructed to insert the photograph in the 1278 and evacuate the test chamber. Result: effect manifests as normal but takes significantly longer. Exact time unknown, as the test was not timed. Atmosphere of test chamber immediately escapes through the portal into deep space. The lens of the camera recording the test exploded due to the pressure differential. Audio records a brief rush of air before going silent. Sensors in the chamber record increased levels of microwave and gamma radiation as well as beta particles. Researcher Blank, outfitted with a spacesuit normally used in the research of SCP Blank, enters the test chamber to remove the photograph. Okay, test 5. Pencil sketch of New York City skyline. Procedure: photograph inserted into the frame. The effects manifested, however, did not display a current sketch of New York City. Rather, the sketch began to play a 24-hour loop consisting of a typical day in New York City as depicted in the sketch, including day-night cycle. Test 6. There was no location. It's a reproduction of Salvador Dali's The Persistence of Memory. D246 was instructed to place the print in the frame and await further instructions. Upon manifestation of the effect, D246 instructed to crawl through the frame. She was chosen due to her exceptionally small frame, allowing her to easily fit in, to enter the frame. Result: 1278's effects manifested normally. 246 enters the frame without difficulty and is asked to report what she observes. Claims she is standing on a three-dimensional plane that resembles the painting. When asked to describe areas not visible in the original work, 246 describes a landscape consistent with that depicted in The Persistence of Memory. 246 recovered without incident. Frame monitored for 24 hours. The only animation observed was a 24-hour day-night cycle. Interesting. Location depicted: none. A reproduction of MC Escher's relativity was used for the test. 246 instructed to place the print in the frame and await further instructions. Upon manifestation, instructed to crawl through. D46 is data redacted by order of O5 command. Testing on any works of art depicting non-Euclidean geometry in any form now requires unanimous approval from Site Command or a 2/3 majority vote from O5 Command. It looks like it probably says is violently ripped apart, but I just want to say, why were tests 2 and 4 the ones that made them realize they need to be careful, and not test 7? I almost stopped at test 2 and 4 because those were the only ones that were mentioned, and I would have missed the fact that MC Escher required an order by O5 command to never do that again. Why didn't y'all mention that one? Anyway, people dogs. I hope this is better than the chair dogs from the 5th and 6th Dune books. That's adorable. And it says it's safe. I also hope it's better than the people dogs that learned Kung Fu, because those people dogs were, don't be like those. Each instance of 1279 is to be contained in a reinforced steel container in storage unit somewhere of Site-87. 2 security officers are to guard these instances at all times. No canines are to be brought within a meter of any 1279 instance unless specifically authorized. Any testing involving 1279 must be authorized by at least one member of Level 3 personnel. Description: okay, I read ahead a little bit and I was just checking if it was Dr. Wondertainment or not, so I'll see if I could use the right voice for it, but it is not. A tag, is a collective term for 6 leather dog tags. A tag reading Dog Inc. dog process collar is present on each instance of 1279. No anomalous physical properties are present in 1279 instances, and their anomalous properties do not become apparent until a 1279 instance is worn by any form of canine. Any canine wearing an instance of 1279, hereafter referred to as 1, will be perceived by any individuals who encourage it as it being of human-level intelligence. They will still be aware that it is in fact a canine, but they will internally anthropomorphize 1, believing it is capable of speech and reasoning. Different individuals affected by the anomalous properties will perceive it as saying different things. Individuals will not consider encountering what they believe is a sapient canine to be abnormal, and will behave as if it were a common occurrence. This perception of anthropomorphic qualities will often result in individuals feeding 1 meals intended for humans and occasionally clothing them in garments intended for humans. See image. So just typically cite 1's lack of modesty as the reason for doing this. Removal of 1279 from 1 results in affected individuals once again perceiving 1 as a normal dog. Interview log. Dr. Matthews interviewed Dr. Gregson. 1 instance of 1, Hank, was present at the interview. After the interview, both Dr. Matthews and Dr. Gregson recorded their respective perception of what had been said. This was in an effort to demonstrate the effect that 1 instances have on the way they are perceived. Hello. Hi. Hello, Doctor. How are you? I'm fine. Despite prior knowledge of 1279's effects, Dr. Matthews and Dr. Gregson still believed 1 was an actual intelligent entity. What? I said I'm fine. I was talking to Hank. Oh, sorry. I didn't hear him. Sorry. Pause. I said I was sorry, Hank. I don't think Hank minds, Tom. No, it's fine, honestly. No need to fly off the handle, Hank. Good one. How long has it been? 50 seconds. About a minute, give or take. Yes, I'm sure. Well, I think that should be all we need, to be honest. Yes, that sounds fine. It's fine, Hank. We can just do it again if it's not enough. Interviewee's perspective. Okay, so the first one was the perspective of Dr. Matthews, and the other one is the perspective of Dr. Gregson. Hello? Hi? Hello? I'm fine. What? I said I'm fine. I was talking to Hank. Oh. I didn't hear him, sorry. Well, you should have been listening then, shouldn't you, idiot? I said I was sorry, Hank. I don't think Hank minds, Tom. How did you even get this job? Isn't your job to pay attention? No need to fly off the handle, Hank. Good one. How long has it been? God only knows. About a minute, give or take. Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. Well, I think that should be all we need, to be honest. That doesn't seem long enough for proper research, does it? It's fine, Hank. We can just do it again if it's not enough. I suppose. SCP-1279 was discovered after reports of a talking dog were received from an anonymous informant. When agents arrived at the location and recovered the instance of 1, it had been arrested by a police officer for public indecency, referring to the canine's lack of clothing. Several instances of 1279 were found scattered in the surrounding area along with the following note. Now your dog too can be a member of the household. Are you ever sick of your dog anti-working for its pay and food upkeep? Well, worry no more, loyal consumer. Our new dog process collar will make your dog a fruitful member of society. Society needs upkeeping loyal, hard-worker citizens to feed the fields, right the offices, and keep your streets safe. Perhaps your dog will be a fireman, stopping the fires from betraying you and your loyal family, or a police officer stopping criminal dogs from destroying the peace of a neighborhood. Not all dogs are good dogs. Perhaps he will be a doctor dog, making open the dogs that have suffered from a terrible mess. Whatever your dog's life chooses to become, it is only due to you, faithful dog owner, purchasing the finest product of Dog Inc. Dog Inc. Nos Quasi-Canes. It sounds like Dog Inc. should probably be another one of those groups of interest and just isn't. I hope it becomes one because I want more things from Dog Inc. Like, Dog Inc. could have been the Kung Fu thing, but it wasn't. It was just weird. Now it's time for the nematodes. Please don't be the meme faces, just be weird nematodes. The memes, Jack! SCP-1280 is Euclid. SCP-1280 culture should be maintained at 20 degrees Celsius and inspected weekly to verify viability of specimens. All researchers working with these cultures must follow procedures to appropriate for biosafety level 2 material and submit weekly stool samples to allow detection of accidental infection. If eggs or larvae are detected, a course of albendazole shall be applied until the infection is cleared. Depending on the culture which produced the infection, amnestics may be given at the discretion of the lead researcher. Human settlements suspected of 1280 infestation are to be investigated by MTF Beta-7 Maz Hatters, under the guise of a humanitarian aid organization. The entire population should be treated for hookworm infection, and a standard hygiene intervention should be performed, including, but not limited to, establishment of sealed latrines and elimination of open-air middens. Depending on the extent and duration of the infestation, amnestics and supplementary psychological counseling may be required to reestablish social boundaries. Description: SCP-1280 is a parasitic nematode worm, superficially identical to Necator americanus, New World hookworm. Its life cycle is the same as N. americanus, with filariform juveniles burrowing through the skin, finding their way through the bloodstream to the lungs, and eventually reaching the small intestine, where they mature and reproduce. Infestations can cause all of the typical symptoms of hookworm infection in humans, including weight loss, lassitude, and anemia. 1280 delivers N. americanus in several respects. Genomic comparison of specimens with reference organisms reveals obvious modifications. A marker sequence appears repeatedly in sections which are junk DNA in the reference organism. Let's see. The significance of this non-coding sequence is not currently known. Okay. More significantly, a number of novel sequences appear in the place of redundant genes in N. americanus. These appear in no other genome and foundation databases, and it is believed that the enzymes and hormones for which they code are responsible for the organism's anomalous effects. For these reasons, 1280 has been assigned the provisional designation of N. americanus X, that. Adult worms in the intestine periodically release a complex mixture of hormone analogs and modified neurotransmitters into the host bloodstream. Some of these molecules are capable of crossing the blood-brain barrier and cause subtle changes in the hippocampus and other brain regions via an unknown mechanism. These modifications have two major effects. Hosts experience significant improvements to both spatial and visual memory, increasing over time until nearly photographic recall is achieved. Memories formed prior to infestation are not subject to eidetic recall. Sense memories other than visual are not affected to the same degree. Okay, so it sounds like it's not mematodes as in internet memes like, you mad? It's memes like memes meaning ideas. The way they talk about memes in Metal Gear Rising Revengeance, even though it sounds ridiculous when they do it. The concept of memes became memes from that game. Let's see. Additionally, host brains begin to excrete chemical messengers back into the bloodstream, which are filtered out of the blood by the worms and stored in a diverticulum off of their main gut structure. Through a poorly understood mechanism, some of these molecules are passed along to the offspring in eggs. Periodically, adult worms regurgitate tiny amounts back into the host bloodstream, causing unbidden recall of seemingly random visual memories upon reaching the brain. It appears that each packet of these compounds corresponds to a single visual memory. Because worms inherit some of these packets from their progenitors, adult worms hold a mixture of encoded memories from every host in their lineage, with an abundance correlated to the generational distance between the current host and the originator. Hosts respond to foreign messages in the same way as endogenous ones, a sudden vivid recollection of events for which they may not have experienced firsthand. Once experienced in this manner, foreign memories are stored normally in the brain and may be recalled in the presence of appropriate stimulus. The organism responds normally to anti-hookworm interventions. Because all worms are cleared from the body, extraordinary powers of recall erode until back to baseline. Any memories formed during the period of infestation will remain. In human settlements with low standards of hygiene, these effects can have serious impacts on the social structure of the community. In villages with common open latrines, members constantly exchange population of worms. The exchange of memories in this manner can lead to the erosion of personal identity as members lose track of which events they experienced directly and which were remembered secondhand. In one extremely advanced infestation, members of an entire village revert to themselves by a single given name and display behavior seen previously only in colonies of eusocial insects. The organism was first identified during an outbreak and redacted in West Africa in 2000-something. The nematodes were limited to a sharply defined area in a 2-kilometer radius around the settlement, and some evidence was found of aerosolized deployment, presumably from a crop duster-type aircraft. Subsequently, blank additional infestations have been discovered in rural areas of sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia, with a smaller number of cases in Central America and southern United States. I thought this was going to be one of those "Are we cool yet?" entries, but apparently not. So, that does it for this episode of Let's Read the SP Foundation Wiki. It was supposed to have been posted a lot sooner than this. I started recording this episode last week, and then was not able to finish it because of issues of loudness and, body strength. I don't know if Mercury in retrograde actually is a thing that's a problem, or if it's just that my sleep schedule sucked. But either way, that's why we're off by 2 weeks, because the last episode of the Mega SCP things was supposed to have gone up last Friday, which would have been October the 1st as of this video. And I was supposed to have been moving on with other things by now. But it didn't go down like that. So, if you like this video, a like and a subscribe will be groovy. If you didn't, you don't need to do either one of those things. If you want to click the bell, you can do that as well so that you're notified of future uploads. And I'll see y'all in the next one when we've finally finished the 1200s. Later.